Henry,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Tim,
Yes.
Randy,
Yes.
and I am here. So we have a quorum. I would like to ask Holly Strutt if she will join the board for the Verizon Tarpon Towers section of the agenda. Holly, will you do that?
Yes.
Okay. Now, with the board's permission, I would like to change the agenda a little bit and do the April decision first, since the other things are going to take a little bit more time and theirs is not. And that way they can just shut off and go about their lives. Is everybody agreed to that?
Yep.
Yes. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes.
So Anthony and Jeanette April live at 69 Red Maple Road, Saugerties, New York, and I have a resolution, a draft resolution that I would like to read. Hold on one second here. Okay. Anthony and Jeanette April are the owners of 69 Red Maple Road, which is in the high-density residential zoning district. They are seeking a 10.5-foot side yard variance from the 15-yard required setback for a shed on the side of their townhouse in the Twin Maples complex. I move that the variance be granted by the ZBA for the following reason. The benefit cannot be achieved by any other means because the backyard slopes up and the underground spring prevents drainage during heavy rain events. 2, the shed, which has been on the property since 1996, does not introduce an undesirable change in the neighborhood character or a detriment to nearby properties. Many of those properties also have sheds. 3, the change is not substantial. 4, the change will not have any adverse physical or environmental effects. And 5, the difficulty was self-created because Mr. and Mrs. April built the shed without first checking the required setback. This variance request seeks to bring the shed into compliance with the zoning law. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Oh, okay, and is there any discussion?
Oh.
Okay, hearing no discussion, I'd like to call a vote on this. Henry?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
Tim?
Yes.
Randy?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Mr. and Mrs. April, thank you very much for your time and your patience, and you have finished with the Zoning Board of Appeals.
Can't hear you.
I can't hear you, but I'm glad that you're happy. Okay. All right, moving on to the next agenda item.
Miss Kelly,
Yes,
this is Roxanne Crean. I just want to ask a really quick question of you. I emailed you and several other people the other
yes.
day regarding.
This is about Hope Farm.
Yes, it is. And my
Yes,
question,
I saw that. I saw that yesterday. You're not on the agenda, but I have it on my list to call you tomorrow after we finish with this agenda, because I spoke to Aldi Weeks about that. So I want to talk to you about that tomorrow morning, if that's okay.
that is fine. Thank you very much. I will bow out.
You're
of the
welcome. And we have not deposited your check because you may not need to. So I'll talk to you tomorrow.
Thank you so much. Have a great night.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, so back to the agenda. Next item is Honorland LLC. The property is zoned high-density residential and is in the waterfront overlay district. The applicant is requesting a 25-foot variance from the required 50-foot setback from the high water mean mark. This is a public hearing. So before we go further, I'm going to make a motion to declare SECRA as type 2, 617.5, parentheses C, 17 for area variances. Do I have a second?
Second, Patty.
Henry seconds. Is there any discussion on that? Okay, hearing none. Hearing none, I'll call the roll. Henry?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
Tim?
Yes.
Randy?
Yes.
And I vote yes. And now I'd like a motion, please, to open the public hearing. Anybody?
I'll make the motion, Patty.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. And let's just do a regular hands up vote on it, or just say aye.
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 Okay, and
Aye.
I say aye. Okay. Kevin, did everybody get their cards back to you?
Yes, they did. Got the green cards
Okay.
physically
And
yeah.
all of the emails and letters from the public have been forwarded to the board, correct?
Correct.
And who is here from Homeland to answer any questions or to present any additional information?
It's Joshua Pulver and myself.
Okay. So this is now open for the public. Before the board asks other questions, we'll let the public have their say. Kevin, I'm going to rely on you since I can't speak to anybody there. If you would just make sure everybody gets recognized and they get a chance to speak.
I will do that. And again, I informed folks that calling in on a phone, if they need to speak, they have to unmute themselves with *6.
Okay, we got an awful lot of emails, or many emails about this project, so I'm assuming some of them are here, so let's let them go. Anybody from the public there?
I see an Isabel Sofer raising her hand.
Okay, it's Isabel.
Okay,
Hi, everybody, and thank you for giving us this time to be here with you and to voice our concerns. I guess my first question is, I'm a Malden resident. I've lived here for 6 years. I live here full time. I understand that there are two different letters that have gone out. One of them says that they're looking for a 25-foot variance from the high water mark, and the other one is requesting a 25-foot front yard variance. So my first question, and I have a couple, if that's okay. My first question is this for a 25-foot variance from the high water mark, or is it a 25-foot request from the front yard?
well, I don't know what they consider their front yard, so maybe that's where the confusion is. The only request they made was for the 25-foot variance from the water. That may be their front yard.
I
So
see.
that may be the confusion.
Right. So can I continue? Is that okay?
Of course, yes, of course.
Right. So the concern that I have is that, as everybody here knows, that this is in the waterfront overlay district, and this district is a very fragile area, and there's the Scenic Hudson, for example, suggests 100 feet from the high water mark. Of course, Saugerties says it's 50 feet. I'm not sure why, if it is 50 feet, why there even is the possibility of them getting a 25-foot setback variance. This is a really, this particular area in Malden is in a really important location. It's right down a hill, a very steep hill with a very serious curve that passes right through the new buildings. It's also right across the street from one of the most, if not the most historic building in all of Malden. Some of us here are really concerned about flooding issues. It floods. I mean, there's no denying that it's going to flood. But how these buildings and how having a 25-foot setback will affect flooding in that area is, it seems like this really needs more serious examination. It's something that's really concerning to us. Also, this area is a highly used area. I mean, Malden is a really unique area. It's tiny. There's about 400 people, about 200 homes. And, this will invariably create undesirable changes to the character of the community. we've seen pictures of the homes. And we're confused by a couple of those, that, like, you know, what is in the proposal and what is actually being planned to be built. But we think that, I think, I should just speak for myself, that allowing 50-foot variance in this critical area on the Hudson River is a terrible idea and also creates a really bad precedent for all of Saugerties. Thank you for your time.
I have a question for
Isabel,
Mrs.
before you leave, yeah, go ahead, Henry, I'm sorry.
How close are you to the river, Mrs. Sullivan?
I'm one street up from the river.
So you're not even on the river.
I'm not on the river.
You're not on the you're not
I
on the
walk
river.
on the river every single day of my life. I am there every single day on the river.
That's the material, whether you're there every single day or not. I'm just asking you a question. You're not on the river, so your house is not on the river. You're one street back.
Correct.
Okay, that's all I want to know.
Isabel, I have a question for you. This is Patty on the phone. Several of us on the board did a site visit down to the location within the past couple of days. And I wanted to ask you, since you said there's so much flooding, most of the houses there along the river are very close to the river. Certainly, some of them less than 25 feet. Have they suffered flooding? I mean, has there been a lot of flooding? Because we looked, I didn't see any damage to the homes. Now, that doesn't mean there hasn't been flooding, but most of the houses are very, very close to the river.
Patty, can I
So
address
in
that?
terms of yes, please.
During Hurricane Irene at first, all the houses along there were flooded. During Hurricane Sandy, it was even worse. And there is one house, I don't know the exact address on River Road, but it was owned by Jim LaDoltz. I don't know the name of the current owner, but he renovated his first floor after Irene. After Sandy, he had to rip the whole house down and raise it.
Well, that's helpful. That's helpful because nobody has indicated that there has been flooding. So I'm glad that we're hearing about this. And
also,
go ahead, Jamie.
Ed Jabs said, I think it was Sandy. He said that's the first time that water has actually gotten into their house.
Okay. So for the answer as to why this was put into effect by the zoning law several years ago, obviously you can't do 100 feet because most of the houses down there are pre-existing zoning, and so you can't make a regulation that's impossible to enforce. But the reason that this was enacted is flooding obviously was one of the reasons. And with the climate, it's becoming more and more something that's likely, but also because we want to protect the river. That when you have heavy building, you have problems with silt and so forth collecting along the river. So that's, for those who were asking, that's one of the reasons. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, I'm Josh Pulver, I'm the applicant of record. We're in adherence with high water levels. So the issue as it relates to zoning, it doesn't specifically relate to high water levels. If you look at the 100-year flood zones, it comes into that property and almost across the street into other existing properties. So there's building code that relates to how high we have to build to be in accordance with high water levels, which we are. The issue here is a zoning setback or a setback related to zoning that we can't adhere to, but the property immediately to the south does. So the path of the river such is that this property, it cuts into the west, and we're asking for a relief such that we're building, my client is building a piece of building on the property to the south. So they're right next to one another.
Well, Joshua, we did ask at the very first meeting last time when we present, is if the owners, the applicants, were aware of the regulation before they decided to build, and we were told yes.
So what is
but you
what is the
couldn't build the
definition?
house you wanted to build.
How would one be aware? This is a buildable plot. It has septic, it has sewer, it has water. It was marketed as a
Well, because you check the regulations, you check with the building inspector before before you
check
you
with the
do
road
that.
crew.
And
I
that's
believe
how you
actually
found out
technically you
about
have
it.
to hire a surveyor and an architect to do those setbacks. So my point is that this is a buildable piece of land only by virtue of the fact that the river is slightly to the west that is at this point. It's, I guess my
What do
question
you
to
mean?
you
What do
is,
you
have
mean
you
by
ever,
that?
have
By
you ever,
slightly to the west? What you keep on saying that? What the river hasn't moved to the west.
right, but so there's two pieces of property that my client.
I know there. I was there today.
Okay. So on this property that we're questioning, which is slightly to the north, the river cuts to the west. Thus, the setback is different.
In front of your property, and the house to the south of you, the existing house, not the one that the foundation is up. That's even closer to the river. There is no damage to the wall in front of that house. There's
Correct.
no, so the river hasn't moved, as you're saying, to the west.
No. My point is that you have two pieces of property left and right that my client bought, north and south. The south one is totally buildable as of right. The north one is not because the river cuts to the west a bit. Therefore, the setback is more, and
No.
there's very little left to build on. Thus,
I disagree with you. The north and the south has the same river front.
But
you don't have
could we
the
agree that
backyard.
the
The
path of
backyard
river is not
is
straight?
because of the roadway, but not because of the river.
But the road and the river get
The roadway goes towards the east a little bit on by the time it hits the second lot.
fair enough, but I'd say that the river cuts west pretty
But
much.
the river didn't move.
The river moves.
Oh, it did. Okay.
I'm not saying that it did.
How long have you been there? I mean, I've been down there for probably 40 years, 50 years.
Well, I was born in Catskill. I grew up on the river. I've been there.
Okay. So you were down to Malvern then all those years. Huh?
I actually never knew Malden existed until I found this property that my client bought. It's beautiful.
Yeah. How come the individual that's putting up the foundation it's already in the works to the south of yours has no issues, no problems? We spoke quite lengthily with him today.
It's the same owner. That's my point.
You what?
Trying to build the same property, the same building essentially on the north lot, but we can't because of the setback related to the river line.
If you stood in line with the foundation that's to your south, you're saying what? What's your argument?
If you take an offset from the river line 50 feet, a 50-foot offset, which is the requirement to the west.
I can't understand what you're saying. Either get closer to the mic or
Diego, can someone bring up the
Yeah, is there any way that we can present our submission?
can you what?
Is there any
You
way?
mean you want to put the
submission?
site plan? The site plan?
Yes.
yes,
Yes.
Yeah, if you have the capability of putting it up, putting the document up, you could certainly do that.
Okay.
So perfect.
Yeah, I guess you could put it in at what, 350? What happened?
So this is the northern lot. I have a presentation for site plans.
Hello?
Hello.
Yeah, we're here. We're here.
How are you? Thank you. So the dotted line, if you see the gray area,
Can you get that blue thing off the screen? Because it's hard to see with that blue thing that's on the screen,
don't know what that is.
where it says customize your own view by dragging.
I think that's only on your screen. I don't have anything like that on my screen.
No, I don't nothing on my.
Okay.
Patty, click on it, it'll go away.
Okay.
That's what he's talking about.
Diego,
Built
is
in the
there any
road.
chance that you can show the southern line?
I'm not sure.
Do you happen to have the southern northern lot combined together? We probably don't, but.
Brian, let me text you.
What's that?
Joshua, your volume is very low. If you could,
Oh,
if you
sorry,
get closer
sorry.
to the mic.
Sorry about that. I was just asking if we happen to have the southern and northern lot analysis like this combined.
Yes.
with Scott, but that's
Bringing it up, Josh. One moment.
thanks so much. I think that clarified everything for Henry's questions.
Okay.
No, sorry, this is not the correct one.
Joshua, the question is, and I saw the same thing. There is one foundation that is laid already, and that is clearly 50 feet away from the river. You want to be 25 foot closer to the river. You're saying it's the same owner, and the properties really didn't look too different to me.
No, they're not.
I guess that's the vague point I'm trying to make, except for the fact that the line of the river, the western edge of the river, as it's surveyed, when you offset it 50 feet to the west, yields basically an unbuildable piece. And that's the irony of this to me.
No.
Is that
So can I ask you a question?
Yes.
This is Holly. So the slide that you just had up, but that you took away just now.
Go ahead. Go back to that.
Yeah, the one with both properties. It shows a 50-foot setback.
This is not the correct one. This is the outdated version. I am going through my files now, trying to find
Okay,
the.
but if one exists where there is a 50-foot setback, why are we talking about this?
Because we were working off a survey that was outdated, and we have submitted the most recent survey that was.
Is it that the survey was outdated, or that that's not where you want to put the house?
No.
The survey was outdated.
Okay.
But that
What
wasn't
is-
that document what the planning board approved as far as the two houses and the 50-foot setback?
No, the planning board only approved the southern lot because the northern lot was not approvable. It required a variance. That's why we're here.
And the other lot is 50 feet away from the river, correct?
Correct.
Right. So, and what the person said last time was that you wouldn't be able to build the house that you want to build if you had to do it to 50 feet. You could still build a house, but perhaps not the one you originally, the size that you wanted to build. Is that correct?
No. With the 50-foot setback, that lot is unbuilt.
Why?
Okay, so if you go back, if someone could bring up our application.
No.
Forget us showing our other work.
You're muddying the waters. I asked you a simple question. Why is it unbuildable?
Because of the 50-foot setback from the river's
Why?
edge.
Why? The house to the south of you has hardly any distance from their foundation to the road. You're further away from the road as you go to the south.
Could someone bring
Or
up
I'm sorry,
any
to
of
the north.
information that
Josh, bear with me here.
Diego, I don't want you to bring out anything other than what we submitted to these people. Is there anyone that's able to bring up what we submitted to you other than myself or Diego, please?
Can I just, ask for clarification? It just seems really strange to say that you can't adjust your plans to suit the land that you have with the 50-foot setback, which is for the health of your building, of the community, and of everything. And, maybe it has to be a smaller house. Maybe,
I don't know how you define, I understand that completely. I don't understand.
How about if you don't interrupt me because I didn't interrupt you?
Apologies.
It's not, you have to, why should the zoning board or the planning board or anybody go around your plans? Your plans have to fit into the land that you purchased.
I understand your perspective completely. The reality is that zoning is prescriptive and it doesn't apply appropriately to every property. And here's a particular, and that's the purpose of the ZBA.
That's
to interpret situations, correct?
That's a unique perspective.
Well,
we're not being asked to interpret. We're being asked to give a variance.
And we give judicious variances, but you're asking for a substantial variance. You're asking to basically cut the
In half.
the provision that was in half, and that's a large variance you're asking for. And you're telling me that anything other than that would not work for you. You're telling, that's
Right.
what you're telling us.
Right.
So it's
Right.
all or nothing. You want all or nothing.
It's not
You'd
all or
do it if it
nothing.
were 5 feet.
It's you are a judicial body who is imbued with the power to articulate particular things in particular circumstances. And this situation is you have a lot that is basically been designed to be built on. In my view, it has septic and water and all these other things, and it doesn't fit.
Septic.
But
You just said that it changed, that the land has changed since.
Let him finish. Don't interrupt him, Isabella.
Sorry.
Again, my point is that the adjacent lot works. This lot doesn't work vis-a-vis the path of the river. It has septic, it has sewer, it has water. It's a buildable lot from any layman's perspective.
Except for somebody who read the zoning, who read the regulations about the waterfront district. And generally, when you're going to build on the water, you check to make sure you're complying with all of the setbacks and so forth. And last month, we were told that they had, and they did it anyway. But now we're being told that you did not know about the setbacks requirement.
I'm sorry, could you state that again, please? Last month,
when we asked this question of the person presenting, we asked them, did you know before you proceeded with this project, did you know about the waterfront setback? And the answer was yes, but we wouldn't be able to build our house any other way. So, and now you're saying to me that you did not know about the setback before you purchased the house.
That's not what I'm saying. We would, of course we knew, that's why we're here with you. We presented to you because we know we knew.
Well, then why would you purchase that if you knew that you couldn't fit
I can't speak to that. That's my client. That's my client's.
That's your what? Your cards.
My client has to speak to that.
Client.
I'm an architect. I didn't buy it.
Turn your volume up or something.
Okay.
Oh, sorry.
Is your client
I think we
here?
understand your perspective.
Is the owner of the property here, Joshua?
No, Kevin, the owner of the property is in the waiting room, Kevin. They said that they are
No,
not.
Diego, I chatted with you. They're using the wrong link. They're using the link from the last month's meeting. Send them this month's link because they're not able to get in. There is no waiting room in this meeting.
Okay, Kevin, thank you for that. I will do that now again.
Okay, I think we understand your point of view very clearly. I think what we really want to hear from are the neighbors. If any of them are there and ready to speak, Kevin, let's hear from them.
I don't see
Hello, this is Tim Pettis.
Yes.
Hello.
Hello.
We hear you,
Hi,
Tim.
This is. I live in Malden, and I've spent many hours on that specific piece of property. I'd like to make 3 points. First, any increase in hardscape, structures, roofs, driveways will increase flooding on River Road. Many of the people down there have experienced flooding. The second point is the road that foundation that is poured on, and by the way, both of those lots are owned by the same people, I believe. Where they poured the foundation is at the bottom of a steep hill. When we get torrential rains, that road becomes a river, and the water is going to run right into the foundation. And the third point is that there's a very historic structure right across the road, and that increased flooding is going to cause damage to that building.
Yeah.
So those are my points, and I've spent many hours on that property at all different times and seasons, and high tide and low tide, and the water is going to come up onto that lawn. It's going to be there. So,
can I address that?
Thank you. Sure. Go ahead, Henry.
Yeah. You're saying that the foundation, that's where the foundation is. That's all been approved by the building department. The lots that this gentleman would be to the north of where the foundation is built on the intersection. So if you're referring to the foundation that's being there right now that they're working on, that's all been approved by the building department.
All right. Hi, finally got in here.
Jesse, I just rejoined. I'm trying to, I think I got booted.
I got in. Let me send this out to you guys right now. Forward. Guys.
Could you explain who you are? Hello?
Yes, hello there. I'm just sending a note to.
Who are you?
We don't know who you are. Who are you?
Yeah.
My name is Jesse Halliburton. Hi. I am one of the owners of the property. Yes.
Okay.
And yes, we were well aware, just to answer a concern of the neighbor, this particular foundation was built with floodgates that would let water in and out in the event of a storm. So we, regardless of the space that the building has covered, this particular situation is the water can come in and out. So it's not going to be stopped and have to go around the building. It can come in and out. And we are out of the flood zone in this particular case. It should have our building of this property should have no additional impact on the property next door, as far as I'm aware. And then further to this, we had a survey. I was trying to get into the meeting earlier. I'm so sorry that it's taking me so long to get into the meeting. But I know there were questions as to buildable lots, and we thought we were buying 2 buildable lots. Actually, we thought we were buying 3 buildable lots, but we thought that splitting it into 3 buildable lots was probably not the best idea. So what we did in turn is we changed it. We didn't change it. It was 2 buildable lots. It was marketed as it could be 3 buildable lots, but we had no intention of building 3 houses. We just wanted to build 2 houses, and we wanted to do it in a modest footprint, which is about 750 square foot footprint, and to honor the land and to keep the trees. We have a number of black locusts on the property. We have a beechwood on the property. We have every intention of keeping the space open and and still a habitat for nature. I mean, just the other day we saw 2 eagles come into the tree and fight over a squirrel that they were eating that day, and we've had many fish, scraps land on our property because of the natural habitat that exists, and we have, like I said, every intention of keeping that the natural habitat. Now, the 2 lots.
Jesse, is this going to be your residence?
No, we're gonna share the houses. We're gonna use the houses, and when we're not using them, we're gonna rent them.
So they're going to be Airbnbs.
I don't know if they're going to per se Airbnb. No, I'm not going to list them on Airbnb if that's what we're talking about here. But sure,
that's going to be your own resident.
We are going to use them. Yes, correct. In fact, we love the neighborhood. My daughter is an avid fisher girl. And, the fish jump out of the water there. So, yeah, absolutely. We have every intention of using those houses. And then we also have an intention of renting those houses.
Okay. So you answered the question.
Yes.
Jesse, was the property already subdivided when you bought it?
It was subdivided when we bought it. Yes.
Okay. And you were aware of all the variances?
Here's what we were aware of. We thought we were building 2. We were buying 2 buildable lots. Otherwise, we probably wouldn't have bought it, right?
Well, they are buildable lots.
Okay, but and I'm hoping that Diego and Josh can pull the plan up. I know that I'm pretty sure you guys have the plans. I don't know if you have them in a printed format or do you have them in PDF format?
I have them now, Jesse, if we want to show this.
Okay, yeah, please
We don't have the plans to the house. Jesse, we don't have the plans to the house because we don't need the plans to the house.
We
That's
don't
for the
need that.
planning
No,
board.
it's not the plan
We
for the
need
house
the
we're
property,
talking about.
just the
No,
property.
I understand. No, I completely
And
understand
that we got.
Okay.
We got the property and the, like the site plan, the river, we did get that. Of course we got that, but we don't need the plans to the house for sure.
All right, I'm sorry. Two questions. One, I only see your telephone number. Who am I speaking with?
This
Chairman
is Patty
of-
Kelly, I'm the chair.
Kelly?
Patty Kelly, I'm the
Patty Kelly.
I'm the
Okay,
chair of the
thank you, Patty.
ZBA.
Yes, Patty. So yes, the survey is what is important. I wasn't specifically talking about the actual house, but you'll see from the survey that it's not actually buildable if you look at it. And it was written by Victorious and Conrad. And if I'm not mistaken, the high water mark changed at some point, and we ended up with a plan that showed this.
So we were working off of an outdated plan during the time of our application. We were working off of an outdated plan. We had Pretorius and Conrad in field working for a new survey for the new client. During that time, we didn't assume that the water, the river's edge, would change from the previous survey. We submitted the application and the owner had purchased the lot. We then saw that the new survey had a water line that was encroaching on the northern
What just
lot.
happened?
To Henry's question, this I hope answers your question.
When did you learn that the water line had moved and that the old survey wasn't accurate?
This was after the owners had purchased the property.
After the purchase.
Yes, because that's when they had the right to hire the survey to be on the
So that's actually not true. You can hire a surveyor before you buy property.
Exactly.
And
No,
do.
it was the same surveyor. You guys can still hear me because for some reason,
Yes, I can hear you.
my screen just, I don't see you guys anymore, unfortunately. So the surveyor, Pretorius and Conrad, okay, who we've worked with before, had been the lead on this particular property. They're the ones that wrote the original survey. So we went back to them and asked them to, to do the survey work to actually show, where the markouts were, and here we are.
May I ask, did the shoreline change for the lot with the foundation on it as well?
No, it looks to me like, were you guys able to see the plan? Because I can't see it anymore for some reason.
Yeah, we see it.
Okay, so do you see how the shoreline,
Closer.
the shoreline is the shoreline. The shoreline is the shoreline, right? So if you look at the setback requirements, you'll see that high water mark is more narrow on lot B than it is on lot A, if I'm correct in saying that, because I don't see it right now.
Was it true on the original survey, though? Were the two lots identical?
No, they were not, because the shoreline changes. And how could there was no way to tell that without Precorius and Conrad were the original surveyors. They surveyed it. It looked as though we had plenty of room to work from. And then they came back.
In the previous survey, sorry, Jesse, to cut you off. In the previous survey, the water line of the river was further east, thus pushing the setback further east, giving us a bigger building area to work on.
And
what's strange? Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
On the northern lot that you're talking about, there's a lot of brush and large trees right on the edge there.
Yes.
Are you saying at one time those trees and that brush were like 6 feet away from the water's edge? It looked like the
actually,
edge was always there.
I'm sorry, who am I talking to now?
Rich Walker.
Rich, hi, Rich. So, yes, Rich, yes, correct. There was high brush there, and there were also trees. Now, some of those trees were lopped off because of the people on the, I'm assuming it was the people on the top, or where the trees were originally, just topped the trees off. But they didn't just top the trees off, they actually killed the tree. We have an arborist that we've been working with for years, and he was, he was the one that helped us clean up what was there. No, the water, yes, the trees were very close to the water. In fact, that beechwood tree has been there for, I don't know, that tree is probably over 100 years old. And it's maybe 15 feet from the shoreline. So to answer your question, that high brush was brush that was was ivy that was growing on top of the tree that was lopped off, was actually left on the ground next to the tree. And we then in turn pulled it off, cleaned it up, and we're giving some more life to the trees that are healthy and that still exist on the shoreline.
Patty, this is Jamie. I have a
yes, Jamie. I'd like to hear more from the public. Thank you. Go ahead, Jamie.
Okay.
No, you're
I just
the public.
I'm public, yeah. And I live in Malden and I have waterfront property. I don't understand how the zoning works, in that if an existing building does not comply, people apply to get a variance. I understand that. But if a building isn't built yet and you want to make it a certain size and that doesn't comply with the zoning, can't you just make the house smaller?
So
listen,
you'd have to, I mean, just because somebody asks for a variance doesn't mean that the zoning board gives the variance. We take everything into consideration. We give variances judiciously, and but asking doesn't mean receiving. And I don't know the answer to your question. Maybe the owner knows the answer to your question about whether it could be made smaller. I don't know. I asked that and they said no, but.
Well, look, can we talk about that for a second? Thank you for your question, and I would like to answer that. So as I understood it, the people that we purchased the property from was approved as 2 lots. I'm assuming it was approved by the town. I mean, you don't, right? I mean, it was on record that those were the 2 buildable lots. Okay, so that being said, I think the previous owner had wanted to build a large house, which would have obstructed the view from the people's home across the street. Now, our effort was to not obstruct the view of the people's home across the street by spreading the homes as far apart as possible, giving the white building and the residents of the white building still the view of the river. Sure, they'll see 2 houses, but they would still see the river and have their river view. That being said, the footprint of this house, of this particular structure, is 750 feet. It's not most of the houses on the river's edge, or even across the street from the river's edge, are a lot larger than 750 square foot footprint. So that being said, we're here today because that high water mark with the current setbacks, which I think is 15 feet on the north and the south side and 25 feet off the road, put us in this situation where the buildable area is maybe like 10 or 15 feet. I don't, how do you build a house in 10 or 15 feet? I don't see it.
Why haven't you gone back to Precorious and Conrad and argued your point with them? I mean, it's basically what you're saying is typical first thing of buying real estate is buyer beware. And that's basically what you've done.
Okay, that might be one way of looking at it, but we were under the
what other way can you look at it? When you're telling me that you bought 2 building lots, and now you found out, well, the surveyor, after the fact that you bought it, and Colley's right. You didn't have to wait until you bought it. That survey could have been done way prior to you buying it.
Sure.
You should have known that.
Well, actually,
and Conrad should have known that.
Henry, and you know, I appreciate your point, but what can I talk now if that's okay? There are two lots.
Yeah, let's just. I do want you to talk, but I also want to make sure, because we don't have forever,
Sure.
that all of the members of the public who are on here to speak and give their views have an opportunity to do that, because we've got other things on the agenda, and I want to make sure they get their say. So, Kevin, could you just please let me know if there are others that are waiting?
Want to say anything?
Well,
I have something I want to say.
What's your name, please?
Mary Ellen Meadus.
Okay.
Can you hear me okay? I was having problems with my
Yes.
audio.
Yes.
I live above the White Meldon house. And my question is as to how large a footprint. You said 750
square feet.
Yes.
How many bedrooms is this house going to be?
3 bedrooms.
3 bedrooms, 750 square feet?
Correct.
Well, it's 2 stories. It's 2 stories.
2 stories, right.
Okay.
3 bathrooms.
Are you also aware of the traffic at that hairpin turn, that cars whiz down the street all the time and sometimes go fast around the corner? You know, I just wondered, because of the
That has no bearing on this.
proximity to the road and driveways and everything.
Those are planning board issues, Mary Ellen. We are just dealing with the variances here.
Yeah. So, Mary Ellen, just a quick, just to answer that quick, I find that, you know, we've been spending a lot of time down there. So many people are respectful of the, you know, I don't even think there's a speed limit sign posted, but they're all very respectful of the neighborhood.
Well, I live in the area, and I know that sometimes there are people that don't come from the area that, you know, drive down the street quite fast because it's a hill, and they whiz around the corner. And that's, you know, I mean,
that has no.
I mean, I know it has nothing to do with maybe the zoning aspect of it, but.
Right. Those are planning board issues when they deal with site plans. We're just really focusing on the variance that request from the river. That's our focus here. And it's not a large house. I think 750 square feet is in 2 stories. That's not a large house.
And Henry, if you don't mind, can I just kind of answer your concern about the buyer beware and buildable lots?
Yeah, sure.
Sure. So those buildable lots were surveyed by Precarious and Conrad and approved by the town.
My point exactly.
So they were buildable lots, and the high water mark changed.
When were they approved though? By the buildable lots? 50 years ago? 20 years ago?
I don't think it was that long ago. No.
Well,
I don't.
Again,
those properties have been for sale for at least.
Hang on a second, Mr. Fine, or Mr. Walker.
Okay.
Precarious and Conrad has been surveyors here for over 50 years that I'm aware of.
Sure.
I've dealt with. They should have known exactly what was going on with that property even before they went in there. If they were the original surveyor, you said, for the previous owner?
Correct.
Okay. So
Henry, they probably didn't call Pretorius and Conrad until after closing.
No, that's not true. We were in touch with them before closing.
At any rate, I think we've kind of gone over the point that obviously this was something that was on your mind when you bought the property. You can't assume that a lot is buildable just because it exists.
Yeah, exactly. That's my point.
Right.
I believe Ms. Sofer had her hand up.
You got 2 pieces of property immediately adjacent to another, 200 feet with another. One is buildable, one is not.
Yeah, it's irrelevant. It's irrelevant that they're next to each other. We're hearing this application, but the fact that this property exists does not mean that you're entitled to build on it. That's part of diligence when you buy vacant land.
I have a comment. It is buildable. It's just not buildable the way you want to build it.
Well, again, Diego, can you just pull that or is it Kevin? Are you able to allow him to pull
I
up
have
that?
it, Jesse. I have it.
If you don't mind looking at this, can you please zoom in on the lot B?
This is
Right, and can you give us can you tell us how wide that particular area is by the driveway?
right now, just looking at it, that's probably 4 or 5 feet there.
Where?
This is the buildable area.
Can you zoom in on it so everybody can see it, please?
This is the buildable area.
How far, let me ask a question.
You see the
please,
area that's buildable, everyone?
Yeah, Jess, can I ask a question of you?
Yeah.
I don't have a scale in front of me. You guys have been doing this here. You're showing river edge, and then you're showing that dotted line is your high water mark.
It's correct.
So the high water mark is in there.
Diego, are you able to
Because
zoom in a little bit more, Diego, and stop moving around? Just bring your arrow right to the edge of where Henry is asking the question about.
Where your high water mark is. All I want to know is the distance between that and the river edge.
But that's so.
That's
But
50 feet.
Henry, that's two different things. The high water mark and the river edge are two different things.
And by the way, Henry, just so you know, that we own the property way into the river. I don't know if you knew that.
I
but
know.
there's-
I see that on the survey, Jeff.
Okay.
Doesn't matter.
I did this for a few years.
Oh, I didn't know that. I didn't know that.
No.
But for the record, the river edge, which is the high water mark, which is defined by the surveyor, we set back 50 feet from that. Then you see this dashed area, which is what's the buildable area, which is very de minimis.
The river, what you're defining as the river edge is the high water mark?
Correct.
This is the high water
The
mark.
dotted line is 50 feet from that, right?
Correct.
Yes.
Okay.
All right. So we have this map. We've seen it.
Okay.
Yeah, this.
Okay. Anybody else from the public? Anybody else from the public? What's your name?
This is Lauren Pettis.
Okay, Lauren. Yes, of course. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm a resident of Malden on Hudson, and I had a couple questions. I looked at the original site plan that was submitted, saying that both of the houses were 50 feet from the high water mark. How is the high water mean mark determined? Is there a way to explain? I know theoretically how it's made, but where is it on the current map, or how far is it from the foundation that was already put in?
It's totally different property.
Ready?
Yes, but the two properties are almost identical in size and where they're situated on the road.
It showed you on that map that the high water mark was right at the river, by the river, and then the 50 feet in was the dotted line on that map.
Okay, because I saw one that had both houses on it, and both showed that they were 50 feet from the river. So it was very confusing to for when this variance was asked for, because the plan that they had done. So am I understanding correctly that the survey that you were using when you did when you designed the first and second house, that the survey was off, and that's why it didn't meet the 50-foot from the river?
Sorry to interrupt. All things being equal, the southern lot is completely in conformance. The northern lot, we cannot build the house that we want to build because of the 50-foot setback, and that's why we're here.
Right, but the site plan that was submitted that had both houses designed.
It wasn't submitted to us. We only had one house on that site plan that was submitted to the zoning board.
Okay, this was
one property.
So that was Oh, that was submitted to the planning board. Okay.
Right.
All right.
Different boards, different jobs.
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
we're dealing with the variance. That's our calling.
This is higher level.
Right.
Okay.
And so you want to build closer to the river than is required, the 50 feet. Okay. And that's the only thing that you're addressing right now.
Yes.
And
Right. The variance, the 25-foot variance is what we're addressing.
Okay. Okay, because I had sent in written comments. Thank you.
Yes, we got them, and everybody saw them. Some of those were more planning board issues.
Hey, Diego.
Thanks, Lauren.
Diego, are
Thank
you
you.
able to
Anybody-
just calculate really quick the amount of feet
Jesse,
that we're
this is,
kind of
I
asking
hate to
for?
say, Jesse?
Yes.
I'm trying to get the public an opportunity to speak, okay? So,
Isabel
my
has her hand up again, Patty.
okay. Isabel, go ahead.
Thanks. I mean, I really appreciate this whole conversation, and I know that the zoning board has to take into consideration the benefit of the applicant versus the harm to the safety and to the community. And also, I think we need to take into consideration the river. And this variance is substantial. Can the house be built without the variance? I mean, I would, hope so. And was this difficulty self-created? It was. And, we're really concerned about our little, area. And it's not out of selfish reasons. It's because we honestly, truly care about the area, about the river, about the health of the whole, this whole little hamlet. And
we all feel that way, Isabel.
Thank you.
And Isabel, we also feel that way.
Well, I mean,
Then you shouldn't encroach on the owner.
That you're a nice neighbor. I really do, because we're very nice people in Malden. It's a really unique community.
Listen,
And
I mean,
or he's going to be
all
a nice
comments
neighbor
should be
also.
directed to the board, please. All comments should be directed to the board.
Anyway,
of the ZBA board.
And, I, as a resident, am opposed to this variance for, environmental and community reasons.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Isabel.
Is there anybody who has not spoken from the community, from the public, who would like to be heard? Kevin, is there anybody else that's waiting to speak who has not yet spoken?
I don't see anything visually. If anybody wants to, under the reactions button, if you're using the app, there's a raise hand function.
Okay. Is there any member of the board who has a question that has not yet been answered?
Yes, Jesse. Just for your own, because I can see where this whole thing is going, and I know that you want to try to build on that lot, and I understand what you're saying. Twofold. I believe that river edge that he's shown as the high, that seems questionable at best. The other thing is, you guys have a gun. You have a level. Do yourself a favor. Go out and take some topo of the lot. That north lot is lower than the south lot. All of a sudden, if you fill that in by whatever, and I didn't look that closely, foot, 2 foot, whatever the case may be, and bring that out, that'll change where that.
I'm sorry, that'll change what, Henry?
I appreciate that, Henry, but we can't extend the lot. If we go up in elevation, the line is still the line.
Extend what wall?
So, ladies and gentlemen, I would just like to say this: where we're attempting to build is so much further back than most of the homes along that river. There are people right.
They were there prior to the zoning, though, Jesse.
I understand.
That's what you're missing.
And I understand, and I'm not trying to, we're here because we want to build a modest footprint on a lot that we thought we
And
could
there
do
you go.
this on.
You hit the key. You hit the key.
I understand that.
Saw.
I understand that, and you know,
Okay.
I'm trying to be honest here.
No,
We thought we didn't realize.
You are being honest. I'm trying to be honest with you, as to say, you know, I think your argument is really with Pretorius and Conrad at this point.
Okay, I mean that may be true, but the point is,
well, I would definitely raise the question. Sure. If I'm sitting where you are, I would raise the question. Yes,
I would ask. Okay, that given what we are attempting to build is a modest footprint, and that
it is a modest footprint.
We took into consideration our neighbor's view. We took into consideration, you know, somebody said, I think one of the women said she was opposed to it because of the environmental impact on this land. You know, I am a super, and like I like.
See, we got to get to the point here. We need to move this along. So please make your final comment, and don't worry about what the other said. Just you wanted to leave us with something, and by all means do that. But
yes, okay, I will. So we have every intention of preserving the environment, preserving the wildlife habitat, and not building in a manner that is going to be detrimental to the environment. We are mindful of how we are going to develop this property, and you know, and open to suggestion. We're always willing to learn. I mean, you know, we try to sweep up the road when we, you know, on a daily basis. We have, one of our lead guy, our lead carpenter is now also one of our partners who is also a boater and loves the water, and his family loves the water. So,
okay.
You understand? You're asking for double the variance. You're asking for, instead of 50, you're asking for 25 feet. It's not a reasonable variance.
I don't think it's 25 feet. Diego,
that's what you're asking for.
It is 25 feet. That's what your variance request is.
Go through the record and look at what relief you've given, because I think you just gave like 10 on 20 feet, but whatever. I mean.
Well, if you can do with 10 feet, then you should let us know, because right now the standing variance is you are asking for 25 feet.
We're going by what you submitted.
From the 50-foot variance. And you know, if you have something else in mind, you're picking the wrong time to let us know about it. That should have been earlier. So
well, I mean,
if you have another variance, a lesser variance, by all means, please let us know. Otherwise, we're going with what was submitted by you.
Josh, Josh, can you tell me what the footage is exactly?
You have it.
5-foot relief on a 50-foot setback. That's what it is.
It minus the 4 feet that we're already that we already have that's buildable.
At this point, I think you have to close the public hearing and tell us what we have to do to come back to you, right?
Unless there's any other comments from the public and any conversations that you're going to have internally, you should have internally, not on camera.
When we get out.
I think that's the best way to do it, don't you all?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you, Patty.
All right. Okay, and if there's, you're all very welcome. And if there's no other public comment, I'm going to make a motion that we close the public hearing. Can I have a second?
I'll second that.
Henry?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
Tim?
Yes.
Randy?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Thank you all very much. And will the two people that are working on this project please talk to each other and then let us know if you are planning to reduce the variance request, because that's something that would be important for us to know before next month. Okay?
Okay, Patty.
Or they're gone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No, we're not gone.
Thank you all.
Oh, well, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you for your time.
Yes.
All right. Thank you very much. Okay. Next on the agenda are Cedar Grove Fire Department and Centerville Fire Department. They're asking for different variances, so I guess we should take them separately. The sign requests are the same. We did not have, when we sent out the agenda, we did not have their variance requests, but I will tell you what they are now asking for. As soon as I find that piece of paper. Okay. So for both Cedar Grove and Centerville, they are asking for a total of 54.4 square feet for their signs. That is a 22.4 square foot variance, larger than the 32 square foot maximum sign mandated in the law. So let's take that one first. And then also for Cedar Grove, they are in the right of way. They are 8 point, I have to find out where it is, 8 point something, 8.2 or something feet into a variance. They are asking to keep that the way it is and to have their sign height go up 3.8 feet. So that's where we're starting from. And who is going to be speaking to this? I think Mike said some other people were going to be speaking to this.
Yeah, that's me, Tom Swart.
Tom, and
Yeah.
you are the chief for which firehouse?
I am the president of Centerville.
Oh, the president of Centerville. Oh, I'm sorry. Before we start, Randy, you have something that you have to say. I'm sorry, Randy.
Yeah, as a commissioner and a board director of commissioner of the fire district and chairman and a board of director of Cedar Grove Fire Company, I'm going to have to recuse myself. But just one thing: these are just replacing wooden signs. They're just new LED signs. That was not on. I just wanted to say that because it's not on the application.
Okay. Now the building inspector said that the sign for Centerville, the electric sign, was given a permit pending and only if the wood sign came down. Has that sign come down?
No, it has not. Well,
So then you are not in compliance, according to the building department.
So I wasn't aware that we had to tear the entire sign down. Did you see the building inspector's letter that was sent to the firehouse? No, I did not. But
okay.
So this is the LED sign is a 4x8 sign. The sign that
4x8 is fine. That's 32. That's 32 square feet.
Correct.
And that's allowed. That's what you can be.
Correct.
So why are you asking for more than that?
Because what has been there for probably 10 years was a 4x8 placard sign, where you put the letters on manually, and above that was I don't know the exact dimensions, 2.5, whatever the 22.5 square feet is. It was just another sign. It just said Centerville Fire Company on it. So
okay, the regulations are, Tom, just so you know, the building inspector sent you or sent somebody at the firehouse a notice of non-compliance because that other sign, the wood sign, has to come down. You are only allowed one freestanding sign, and since you're doing the LED, you were not able to keep the other sign. So that's why you're not in compliance with that.
Right. So I guess that's why we're asking for a variance, since what we're doing is basically a replacement of what.
That's not a variance, Tom. You want to circumvent the law.
Okay.
Okay, what?
I mean, if the law only permits you to have one sign, you can't have two signs. That's not a variance. That is asking for a waiver from the law. And the building department, sent a letter saying that you are in non-compliance because that sign didn't come down. You're perfectly, 8x4 is perfectly in compliance for the LED sign. That's fine. It's the second sign that is putting you out of compliance. And I don't think that the zoning board can grant a variance for non-compliance with the law. That would be a waiver, and that would set a precedent that would be unthinkable. So that's something to think about and discuss. Now, is that the
You can
same
have
for?
one or the other. I mean, that's acceptable.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not a problem.
But you already have the signs up. The LED signs are up on both the Centerville and the
And for Cedar Grove, yes, because
and
they
the-
were replacement
right.
of signs that existed. Yes.
But the Cedar Grove Fire Department didn't get a permit for it before they put theirs up because they were rejected because they are in the right of ways.
Patty,
Yeah.
this is Kevin Brown. I was the one that handled this.
Hi, Kevin. Okay, so maybe you can help us out here. We've
Yes.
got the letters that you sent us about these two firehouses.
Yes.
About the signage
Centerville-
violation.
Yep, I'll explain it. Centerville
Okay.
sign was a pre-existing non-conforming sign. It was
Right.
already larger than the 32 square feet prior to the sign law coming in. When they submitted their application, Mr. Swart wasn't the president at the time. The other president was there, Brian Ellsworth, and he told me they were removing the entire sign and putting in an LED sign, which in turn they didn't do. They just wanted to remove the interchangeable letters at the bottom and put the LED sign where the interchangeable letters used to be. So in essence, they already had the non-conforming sign. They just added LED to the bottom so they didn't have to go out and change the letter. And
Right.
Cedar Grove is doing
So the letter
exact
from
same
you is you're saying that has to come down, that the LED sign is in compliance, but it's the other one that is not. They cannot have both.
Well, they technically could if you give them a variance. It's all one sign.
Well, but it would be a
The
variance
size of everything that they need the variance on.
Do we have pictures of these signs?
You're talking in circles, Kevin.
We have pictures.
Yeah, that's
No, they didn't take pictures. They didn't give us pictures.
No, I don't have pictures.
Can I say something, Patty?
Who is
At
this?
point? It's Tim.
Go ahead, Tim.
Oh, okay. Hi, Tim. I can't see, so.
Yeah. I drove past it earlier, like within the past couple of hours, so I saw the sign. I mean, in my mind, if you have an LED sign and then a wooden sign, I mean, to me, that's not the same. That's not the same thing. These are two different structures in my view.
That would be the other thing we were looking for from you guys, is an interpretation like that, because again, our
but this
sign
is
law
not
very
you're
big,
asking
but
for-
it's there.
The total sign square footage would be 54.4 square feet. That is way over what is allowed, which is a 32 square foot sign. So you're asking for a variance that is enormous, besides the fact that you would be having two signs. I don't know how you reconcile that. I mean, I understand that you want it and that you're asking for it, but if we give it to you, then believe me, we're going to be getting knocks on our door from everybody wanting the same deal. Why would, you can't give it to one and then it becomes a precedent. Then you don't have a sign law anymore.
Okay.
So which is more important, I guess? The digital sign, the LED sign,
the
or
digital
the other
sign-
sign? You have a sign on the firehouse, don't you? You have a sign that identifies that it's the Centerville Firehouse on the firehouse itself?
Yes. So yeah, we could, yes, the Centerville sign, so the wording of the Centerville is not deemed as important, right? The LED sign is what's important. That's what we are using now for public service announcements.
Right.
As very, whatever, all kinds of things to announce.
Right.
So
is that the way that you think you want to go with that?
well, I mean, we'd
Because
like,
otherwise you're putting us in a quandary here. Is that well, I'll let the rest of the board. I don't want to be the only one to offer an opinion on this. I just
right,
don't
Pat.
see how you get away with a 54.4 square foot sign, which is so over and above what the law requires and mandates.
so the second sign, which is just the wording of the Centerville Fire Company, it's 8 feet wide by maybe 2.5 feet high. It's whatever comes out to be 22 square feet. And I guess we've been
22.4 square feet.
right. So I guess we've been non-compliant since the day we put that up years and years ago. If that's, I mean, they're two separate signs. One is just words that are always there, and then the other part of the sign is what changes with all the lettering.
Right, but when you put them together, you have a sign that is 54.4 square feet then.
On one surface, yes.
I thought there was a sign on the firehouse itself that said Centerville Firehouse. No? You don't have something that's on the building itself?
I thought, yeah, there is.
Okay.
Why did the second sign?
Just look nicer. It was something we put on many years ago.
Well, I mean, I'm not going to tell you what to do. I'm just going to tell you you're not in compliance. And I certainly don't feel that I could give you a waiver for being out of compliance with the law. Mm. You know, if we're talking about a 1 foot thing, but you're not, you're talking about adding a lot from 32 square feet to 54.4. That's almost double, for heaven's sake.
So all signs for business.
You want to think about it and talk about it amongst yourselves on how you want to handle that? Because I don't think we can schedule a public hearing until we have a better idea of what it is you really feel you need to do.
Sure, I can go back to the company and discuss this.
Yeah. And I appreciate that. I think we all do. Henry, did you have something to say about this also?
No, I think you hit it. Which one is more important to the company? I mean, if the LED is well, then take the other. It's cited even in there. I mean, the building inspector cited that if the one goes up, the other one comes down.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the deal, and it didn't happen. I mean, you want to be in compliance. You don't want to be out of compliance with the law. So, I guess what we can postpone this, and you can let us know after you talk to the other people in the fire company and figure out what you want to do and how you want to approach it, whether you want to take down that sign and just have it be the LED sign.
Okay.
The LED is 32 square feet, right? You said it's 8 by 4?
Right. It's slightly less than 4 by 8, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. So that's in compliance. And if it's less than the 32 square feet, maybe you could put a little Centerville thing right on, a little thing that says Centerville on top if you needed to. But if it's on the firehouse already, you don't need it.
The lawyer's name?
You want to stay within 32 square feet. That's what the sign law says you should be at.
So just
maximum.
So I'm clear, the law is it's 32 square feet per surface, right?
Per sign face, yes.
Yes. Okay.
Yes.
But you can't have five signs, Tom. If that's what you're asking.
You can't have two. You can't have two signs. You're entitled to one
32
freestanding
square
sign.
foot.
That's it.
One sign.
And that's not just Centerville. That's also for
both. It doesn't
both
matter
firehouses.
what the location is.
Cedar Grove has their sign up too. I don't know what the size is of that.
It's pretty much the same size.
Okay, and the problem there is that they are they need to be 10 feet away from the right of way. So they have one right of way that they are only 8.8 feet away, and then the letter says that they very well may be right in the DOT right of way as well. I guess you need a little bit more certainty about that from Kevin, but certainly 8.8 feet away from the right of way, and you need to make that 10. So a variance of 1.2 feet is reasonable. That's a reasonable variance. But besides that, they're asking for an additional 3.8 to the size of the sign. So if it's already 32 square feet, I'm not quite sure what about that. Why they're asking that.
We can't, Patty. we can't give a variance on a state right
No.
away. That's the state of New
Well,
York.
no,
That's
it's not.
us.
They wouldn't be in the state right of way. They would be in the state right of way. We don't know exactly what the dimension is.
No,
But the other
it's-
right of way, I'm
it's
assuming, is
it's
the one on
cited-
the road next to the
it's
next to
cited
the
right-
firehouse, which is
But it's cited right here. The proposed 8'8" from the public right of way and possible right of way of the state right of way. Okay.
right.
So that would have to be
I think
determined.
what's the road that is right next to the firehouse that goes right into Winston Farm? What is the name of that road?
That's a town road.
Yeah.
That's a
that's-
town road. Okay. That's
Okay.
I think that's where you're the 8.8 feet away from that right of way. And
No,
then the
I
state
believe-
right of way
I believe-
on 32.
No, I think it's 32 that it's the closer to.
Oh,
Patty-
if that's the one that's
Patty,
in the right of way, then Henry's right. Go ahead.
I don't know if I'm at liberty to comment yet, but I think the question is
Who's talking, please?
from
Billy Shermer.
Okay, hi, Bill.
the distance from the Route 32 right away is, I think, what's in question.
Okay.
Right.
And the right of way itself, the state highway boundary, is much wider than the pavement.
That's correct.
And just in some perspective, the Cedar Grove sign is probably further away from the pavement than a lot of the signs that exist along the current state corridor. And I'm just bringing that forth as perspective, not in any way determining the compliance with our law. But if you drive down Route 32, that sign is probably no closer to the pavement than a lot of the other signs that are there. So I think that probably needs a physical inspection to see what we're really talking about.
Well,
and that has
I think
nothing at
there
all
needs
to
to
do
be
with
measurements.
sign. I'm not commenting on that. Just to put it in perspective, if you drive down the road there are several signs much closer to the pavement than the Cedar Grove sign.
Right. The way the letter from Kevin Brown, the code enforcement officer, reads, he says it this way. He says that freestanding signs have to be 10 feet from a public right-of-way, and the proposed is only 8.8, while possibly also being right on the state highway right-of-way. So it makes it sound like there's two right-of-ways there. I thought one was the town road, and one was, so I think the best thing to do is get precise measurements so you know exactly what you're talking about, and find out how far you are from both of those right-of-ways.
Patty, it's Kevin.
Hi, Kev.
So the 8.8 is the height of the sign that they want to install that's there. The actual
Oh, that's what
state
that
right
was?
of way.
That was at 8.8 feet height?
Yeah, 8.8 feet in height, where our sign law reads 5 foot, 10 feet from the right of way.
Oh, okay.
Now, they are right on the edge, believe it or not. I checked with the state this week. They are right on the edge of the state right of way with their sign.
They're
So
10
we're
Okay,
feet.
and how,
for a 3 foot height variance, a 3 foot 3 inch height variance, if you were to
so
allow
they're
that,
already,
that sign.
but they're looking for height variance to their sign. And their sign is already 32 square feet. So they're looking to increase the size of their sign.
Well, what's
Is that
there is
correct?
actually already over the 32 square feet, which you've already denied Centerville. So you're going to be denying Cedar Grove.
I thought that the signs were the same. They're not the same in size.
They are. The difference is Centerville is a LED sign fastened to a wood board. Cedar Grove is an all lit bottom part LED, top part Cedar Grove sign.
And that's 8 foot high already, Kevin?
And it's 8 feet Yes, 8 feet, 8 high,
So it's
finished
And how
grade.
far, and how far
How wide?
wide? How far wide? What's the total square footage on that sign, Kevin? Do you know?
That's the 54. They measured the same. They were looking for the same variance, but you just said that Cedar Grove or Centerville's is going to be a no-go because of the top sign.
Right.
Cedar
No,
Grove
they
would be
can't
in
have.
the same realm unless it's all one sign. I didn't, I'm not asking them to take the sign apart.
I haven't looked, quite honestly. I have seen that they have an LED sign, but I haven't paid attention to the height of it until I got these
Kevin.
notices.
Evan, I have a
Go ahead.
question for you.
Yeah.
You keep on saying you, as in the zoning board, denied this and you denied that. You're the building inspector. You're the one that put the denial in. So what did you deny it on? Our
I
opinion?
denied it because it's over the square footage allotment of 32 square feet.
Well, then you answered your own question. What are you asking us for then?
And I denied it because it's 8 foot 8 high and it's right on the right of way, Henry.
Okay, there you go. So you
just told Centerville to go back to the drawing board. So you're going to be telling Cedar Grove the same thing then, because they have the same thing, a split
100%.
design.
100%, Kevin.
So now their height variance might not even exist if they take the top part out. That's what I'm trying to get across.
Exactly.
You're exactly right. You're citing it, and actually, the way you wrote it up, no one would have known that it was the height variance. You said the proposed is 8 foot 8 inches from the public right of way. Who would take that as the height variance?
Okay, so I think both Cedar Grove and Centerville know what they have to do. If they are close to the right of way, and just why don't you just go do your measurements and find out if you take the thing off the sign, is your sign in compliance? And if you're right on the edge of the right of way and you are in compliance, then are we in agreed that would not be a problem? If they're 10 feet from the, if they're 10 feet from the right of way and their sign is 32 square feet, then they would be in compliance. They just need to be in compliance, or otherwise they're not going to get a permit and they're not going to be in compliance with the building department.
That's the bottom line right there. Hey, Tommy.
Okay.
Tommy.
Yeah.
Do yourself a favor. You said you haven't seen a copy of what
I
the
have
building inspector wrote?
No,
So you can't talk about it intelligently. You have Randy, who sits on the board. He should have had a copy of this. You have Mike Ivino.
Mike Ivino has a copy.
Who submitted it. He should have a copy of this here. Either you don't talk to each
us.
other, or you just want to circumvent the law. Something's out of whack here.
Well,
I got a building inspector that says that it's all wrong, and then he's asking us, well, what can we do, and why is it wrong?
Right. So the application should cite exactly what variances are being sought.
Exactly.
Instead of us sitting here wasting like 15 minutes asking each other what the measurements are.
100% right, Paula.
All right, so let us go back and do our homework better then, and
right. And Mike did finally put in variances, but they ended up being so much higher and more substantial than the law allows. So that helped us not at all. So your desire is to have a 32 square foot LED sign, and that's what your focus should be on. Anything else should come off of that sign so that it fits the law. And then you want to double check that on Cedar Grove you're 10 feet away from the right of way, and even if you're on the edge, but that sign has to be 32 square feet too. Then you'd be in compliance with the law. Nobody else is going to be bugging us for favors because the fire department's got favors, and everybody's in compliance, and that's the way it should be for the law. Are we agreed?
Agreed.
No?
We are.
Yeah. Okay. What about the fire department? Tom, are you in agreement with that?
Yeah.
That you'll be double checking on that stuff?
I will double check on it, yeah.
Excellent. Excellent, and congratulations on your new appointment, your new role there. I saw that come across, so that's congratulations.
Thanks.
So we're not going to schedule a public hearing on this. We may not need a public hearing because if you're going to fix it and it's in compliance, then you're going to be all set.
Right.
If you don't fix it, we'll hear about it.
Correct.
So, Kevin, is that okay with you? Kevin, Mr. Code Enforcement Officer, is that workable for you that they're going to try and bring it into compliance?
That's fine with me. I just figured the only other option was variances approval by you, otherwise be in compliance.
No, I get it. I get it. They get
okay
this one
with that.
shot to bring into compliance.
Yep.
And then and if they're not, then we'll be right back here again.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you. Good night for everybody, and we'll hopefully you'll get this resolved. Okay. Next on the agenda is Tarpon Tower Verizon Wireless decision. I don't need to read all the specs on it because everybody is very familiar with this application, and we have a draft decision that we'd like to read. Holly's going to read part of it, and I'm going to read part of it, and then the board will discuss, and then we'll vote. So Holly, I'll let you go first. Holly, are you muted?
You're muted, Holly.
I'm muted. I'm sorry.
We hear you, Holly.
I am gonna put this decision up on my screen, so I won't be looking at all of you, but doesn't matter. You can hear me.
It's going to take some time, so everybody just settle down and sit back. It's lengthy, but it has to be, so.
Okay, so this is a resolution in the matter of the area variances application of Tarpon Towers 2 LLC and Cellco Partnership DBA Verizon Wireless. Part 1, project background and procedural history. Number 1, Tarpon Towers 2 LLC, which is called Tarpon, and Cellco Partnership DBA Verizon Wireless, which is called Verizon Wireless, proposed to install and operate a new commercial telecommunications facility. Installation of the facility involves the construction of a tower upon which the telecommunications equipment will be mounted. This facility is proposed to be constructed on land owned by Kidco Realty Corporation, located at 17 Industrial Drive in the town of Saugerties, with the tax map number 28.4, Block 2, Lot 38.6. For convenience, Tarpon and Verizon Wireless will be referred to collectively as the applicant. The applicant currently proposes to install and operate a new wireless communication facility, a Type 5 facility under the Town of Saugerties zoning law, Section 245-11P4B. The proposed facility will be a tower which would be 159 feet high. That is 155 feet plus a 4-foot lightning rod, related mounted antennas, and ground equipment. The facility is proposed to be located on a 50 by 50 foot square footprint within the property, which area is proposed to be fenced in. In addition to the tower structure, the facility is also proposed to include 1 antenna at the antenna center line height, which is ACL, of 146 feet, and 2 equipment on the ground within the fenced area. 2 whip antennas would be installed at the top to accommodate potential emergency service needs. Initially, the applicant proposed to install and operate a new 120-foot high monopole tower structure and related antenna and equipment on certain real property located at 766 Kings Highway in the town of Saugerties, which property is owned by the Mount Marion Fire Department, and which property bears tax map number 28.4-11-13.1. This property is referred to as MMFD property. The MMFD property is located in the town's residential hamlet zoning district, and a commercial telecommunications facility is not an allowed use in that district. Consequently, the applicant had applied to this board for use variance and an area variance in connection with the facility which it proposed for that property. Number 4, as the proposed MMFD property was owned by a volunteer fire company, the applicant had asked our board to make a determination as to whether facility proposed for the MMFD property was immune from compliance with the Saugerties zoning law pursuant to the balancing of interest test set forth in the matter of the County of Monroe, 72 NY 2nd Department 338 from 1988. Monroe balancing of interest test was designed to apply to situations where the interests of two governmental entities come into conflict regarding compliance with local land use regulation. Purpose of this balancing test is to determine, quote, which governmental interest should prevail when there is a conflict between the zoning ordinance of one political unit and the statutory authority of another unit to perform a designated public function. Number 6, the ZBA held several meetings and public hearings in an effort to resolve issues regarding siting, radio frequency, RF, engineering, safety, and alternatives. In conducting the Monroe balancing of interests test to determine whether the applicant should be granted immunity from review under the Saugerties zoning law, of particular interest was whether there were potential alternative sites for the facility in the nearby office/light industrial OLI zoning district, a district which allows the siting of telecommunication facilities subject to a special use permit. Excuse me. Number 7, after much persistence by the board in imploring the applicant to explore and consider potential alternative sites, the applicant finally provided the ZBA with information about 2 possible alternative sites, both located in the OLI zoning district. These sites are 17 Industrial Drive and 37 Industrial Drive. Although the information that was submitted was preliminary in depth, it was sufficient to demonstrate that these sites were technically feasible alternative sites despite not being the applicant's preferred locations. On January 7th, 2021, paragraph 8. On January 7th, 2021, the ZBA found that a majority of the factors of the Monroe test favored the decision that the application to install a telecommunications facility on the MMFD property should be subject to compliance with zoning law. In other words, the application was not immune from compliance with the zoning law. In light of that decision by the ZBA, the next step in the review process was to continue the board's review of the applicant's application for a use and area variance to allow installation of the facility on the MMFD property, including holding public hearings for the requested area and use variances. By a vote of 5 ZBA members in favor and 1 member abstaining, the ZBA voted that same night to adopt a written decision embodying its decision on the outcome of the Monroe test. Number 9. Key to that decision was the fact that there may be technically feasible alternative sites in the nearby OLI zoning district where this facility could be located. As such facilities are permitted in the OLI district with the issuance of a special use permit, a proposed facility may be more in harmony with the Saugerties zoning law because that law considers those facilities in the OLI district as opposed to the RH zoning district. Number 10, the ZBA found that the applicant should not be immune from the town of Saugerties zoning law, particularly as the applicant had not met its burden to consider alternative sites since the OLI district was so close by where telecommunication facilities could be sited with the issuance of a special use permit. The applicant was able to continue with its application at the MMFD for a use and area variance subject to the town of Saugerties zoning law, or could have pursued a site within the OLI zoning district. However, it was noted that the ZBA had not formally reviewed any proposed sites within the OLI zoning district and requested that if the applicant wanted to pursue such sites within the OLI district, the applicant would have to formally submit an application if any area variances were requested so the ZBA could fully evaluate the requested variances for proposed sites within the OLI district. Number 11, the ZBA's Monroe decision was not a denial of the application. It merely ruled that the applicant had to comply with the zoning law and thus would require both a use and area variance to construct a telecommunications facility on the MMFD property. Number 12, in response to the ZBA's Monroe decision, the applicant requested that the Mount Marion Fire Department application be tabled, placed on hold, tolling the application of the FCC shot clock provision as it reviewed potential alternative sites in the OLI zoning district. Number 13, on February 16th, 2021, the applicant submitted a new application for a proposed wireless communication facility. As mentioned previously, the proposed facility would be 159 feet high, 155 feet plus a 4-foot lightning rod, and include related mounted antennas and ground equipment. It would be located on a 50 by 50 foot footprint within a fenced-in area. Included in the installation would be antenna at the antenna center line height of 146 feet and equipment located on the ground lying within the fenced area. 2 whip antennas would be at the top to accommodate potential emergency service needs. Number 14, the facility proposed in the new application was proposed to be a new tower constructed on land located at 17 Industrial Drive in the town. This property is located in the town's OLI zoning district. Number 15. Like the facility the applicant had proposed for the MMFD property, the facility proposed to be located at 17 Industrial Drive is a Type 5 facility under the Town of Saugerties zoning law, Section 245-11 P4B. Excuse me.
Ellie, do you want me to take it a few while you get a glass of water?
No, I'm okay. Thank you.
Okay.
I think, yeah. The Saugerties zoning law, section 245-11P4B, establishes a hierarchy of the priority amongst 5 types of telecommunications facilities. The list of types is a spectrum of preference, with the most preferred type of facility being Type 1 facilities, those incorporated into the design of new or existing structures, progressing to the least preferred type of facility being Type 5, new commercial telecommunications towers on new sites. 17. Pursuant to the zoning law, Type 4 and Type 5 telecommunications facilities are permitted in the OLI zoning district, subject to the issuance of a special use permit by the Town of Saugerties Planning Board. Number 18. As initially presented to the ZBA, the application for the facility proposed for 17 Industrial Drive was set back from the property lines in the following dimensions. Setback from the front yard property line, 159 feet. Setback from the rear yard property line, 262 feet. Setback from one side yard, 188 feet. And setback from the other side yard, 165 feet. Number 19, the Saugerties zoning law, section 245-11P4C 9A, requires that all tower bases must be located at a minimum setback of 1.5 times the tower height from any property line. In this case, the proposed facility is 159 feet high. Thus, pursuant to the zoning law formula, it must be set back at least 238.5 feet from any property line. Number 20, the applicant's facility proposed for 17 Industrial Drive did not meet the setback requirement of the zoning law. Hence, the applicant initially applied to this board for the following variances from the setback requirements initially requested. A variance of 79.5 feet from the front yard, a variance of 50.5 feet from the left side property yard, and a variance of 73.5 feet from the right side yard. Number 21, on February 22nd, 2021, then ZBA Chairwoman Jeannie Goldberg sent a letter to the applicant on behalf of the ZBA advising the applicant that the application was incomplete. The letter stated that the initial application fee had not been paid and that the application did not include a copy of a denial letter to the applicant from the Town of Saugerties zoning enforcement officer denying the applicant's application for a building permit. This written notice by the ZBA to the applicant that the application was incomplete had the effect of tolling the FCC shot clock for the current application. Number 22, on March 15th, 2021, a denial letter was issued by the Town of Saugerties zoning enforcement officer. The denial letter stated that area variances were required for the height and setbacks. Upon submission of the denial letter to the ZBA, the tolling of the FCC shot clock time period was ended. Number 23, on April 5th, 2021, the ZBA held its regular meeting and the applicant presented its proposed application for the facility proposed at 17 Industrial Drive to the ZBA and the public for the first time. During the course of that meeting, discussions were had between the ZBA's consultants, and the applicant's representatives. During the RF map presentation, the ZBA's consulting RF engineer, Ronald Grafe, PE, asked Michael Crosby, PE, the applicant's RF engineer, about the comparison of the tower height that had been proposed for the MMFD property and tower height being proposed at the 17 Industrial Drive site. Mr. Grafe observed that there was only a 4-foot difference in ground elevation between the two locations. Mr. Grafe commented that the ground elevation difference between the two sites was insignificant, and he went on to ask Mr. Crosby why the height of the tower proposed for the 17 Industrial Drive site was 159 feet, a significant increase from the 120-foot tower that had been proposed for the MMFD property. Although the difference in ground elevation between the two sites was only 4 feet, the proposed tower for 17 Industrial Drive was 39 feet higher. Mr. Crosby agreed with Mr. Grafe about the difference in ground elevation between the two properties, but he asserted that was not a factor in the height of the tower. Daniel Schuster, the ZBA's planning consultant, also asked the applicant's representatives to provide a justification for the increase in height at 17 Industrial Drive. Mr. Schuster noted that the application materials did not justify the specific height for the tower. He also noted that there were no simulations for coverage utilizing a smaller tower. The applicant was advised that a height justification analysis would be required. Mr. Crosby said he was working on those results and they would be provided to the ZBA as part of a supplemental submission prior to the next meeting. In addition to justification for the tower height, additional information was also requested of the applicant at that meeting, including confirmation of the actual variance measurements and amending maps to clearly mark points of reference. Number 24. On April 14th, 2021, the applicant conducted a visual impact analysis through a balloon test. Photographs were taken during leaf-off foliage conditions from certain locations within a 5-mile radius of the tower location. Photographs were taken from sites considered to be sensitive visual receptors due to historic or cultural resources or scenic views. Photos were also taken from location viewpoints accessible to the general public, as well as from viewpoints from major roads and from receptor locations recommended by the ZBA. On May 3rd, 2021, the ZBA discussed the revised submissions received from the applicant, including the balloon test analysis. ZBA Chair Kelly noted that numerous viewpoint receptor locations the ZBA had asked be included in the visual analysis had not been included. These locations included 801 Kings Highway, an 1840 brick home, 1032 Kings Highway, a Meyer homestead, 694 Kings Highway, Levi Meyer House, 1792, 198 Dussel Road, Winnie House, 1773, 347 Old Powder Mill Road, the 1730 York House, 807, 810, 775, 793, and 783 Kings Highway, and 600 Glasgow Turnpike. Number 26, the applicant acknowledged that those properties had been inadvertently omitted from the analysis and advised the ZBA that another balloon test would be conducted, which would include the above-mentioned properties. Number 27, on May 7th, 2021, the applicant conducted a second balloon test, although because the spring season was advancing, the foliage conditions were now partially leaf on. Number 28. On May 18th, 2021, the applicant submitted materials to supplement its application. These materials included 1. A revised survey and site plans. 2. An RF analysis. 3. A supplemental visual resource impact evaluation. And 4. A revised area variance application based on the revised survey. Several photographs in the supplemental visual resource impact evaluation demonstrated that at the 159-foot height proposed, the facility would be visible from viewpoints over 1,000 feet away from the tower. Town of Saugerties zoning law, section 245-11 P4C3C, provides no facility shall be silhouetted against the sky as seen from any viewpoint located 1,000 feet or more from the base of the facility. Number 30. The photos taken from the visual resource impact evaluation demonstrated that the proposed tower did not meet this standard. Hence, a further area variance from this requirement would be necessary in order for the proposed facility to qualify for a special use permit. There are a lot of beeps. Is everyone?
Yeah.
You can still hear me and everything? Okay.
Yes, yes.
Okay. Where did I leave off? The photos taken from the visual resource impact evaluation demonstrated the proposed tower did not meet the standard. Hence, a further area variance from this requirement would be necessary for the proposed facility to qualify for a special use permit. The applicant has stated that the proposed tower will be approximately 30 to 40 feet above the tree line and therefore silhouetted against the sky as seen from points more than 1,000 feet from the tower. Number 31. On June 7th, 2021, the ZBA continued its review of the supplemental materials. The applicant presented the photographs from the second balloon test, the differences between the visual impact of the tower as depicted in the photographs from the first balloon test taken in leaf-off foliage conditions, and the photograph from the second balloon test, where the photos were taken in partial leaf-on foliage conditions, were obvious and noted by ZBA members. Mr. Schuster provided an analysis of the visual assessment and noted that there were few, if any, significant adverse effects on the designated aesthetic resources in the project area based on policy guidelines established by the New York State DEC. At the same meeting, the ZBA determined that the application was deemed to be complete for the purpose of scheduling a public hearing, and the board scheduled the public hearing for July 12, 2021. The board also classified the application as an unlisted action pursuant to the State Environmental Quality Review Act. The ZBA then directed that a notice of intent to act as lead agency be circulated to the Town of Saugerties Planning Board, as the Planning Board had special use permit approval authority over the project. The ZBA recommended the Planning Board act as lead agency. The Planning Board was declared lead agency and adopted a negative declaration as its determination of significance pursuant to SECRA on October 18th, 2021. Number 32. On June 23rd, 2021, ZBA Chair Kelly received an email from the applicant's attorney which said the following. As part of its continued due diligence under the National Environmental Protection Act, Tarpon Towers has recently been informed by its environmental consultant, Tri-Leaf, that a portion of the property contains wetlands. According to Tri-Leaf, the location of the tower, as currently shown on their site plans, is within the identified wetland area. Because of this, Tarpon Towers is proposing to relocate the proposed facility approximately 41 feet to the south to ensure that the wetlands are not encroached. Tarpon Towers is working with Tri-Leaf and its surveyor to revise the plans accordingly. We believe it is appropriate to postpone the public hearing, currently scheduled for July 12th, to allow us to complete the plan revisions and submit the revised plans to the ZBA for its continued review. Paragraph 33. The agenda for the July 7th ZBA meeting stated that the public hearing was postponed at the applicant's request. The ZBA also made an announcement to that effect at the July 7th ZBA meeting. In doing so, the ZBA noted that the applicant is proposing to relocate a facility approximately 41 feet to the south to avoid encroachment upon wetlands, and that a revised site plan would be forthcoming. Number 34. On August 5th, 2021, the applicant and the ZBA mutually agreed to extend the FCC shot clock, which was set to expire on or about August 6th, 2021. The ZBA and the applicant agreed to extend the shot clock to November 8th, particularly in light of the news about a revised tower location and site plan. In a letter by the ZBA to the applicant addressing the extension of the shot clock, the ZBA noted that although the ZBA had agreed to extend the shot clock, the ZBA had to review and consider the impacts flowing from the change of the tower location and determine if this change impacted additional off-site properties, whether any additional studies would be required. The ZBA reserved the right to ask for additional extension of the shot clock in order to conduct a proper and complete review of the application as revised with the new tower location. Number 35. On August 25th, 2021, the applicant submitted its revised application to the ZBA. In the revised application, the location of the proposed tower was shifted approximately 40 feet to the south from its originally proposed location in order to avoid encroaching upon federal wetlands. Number 36. The revised tower location eliminated the need for one of the side yard variances, but the revised location increased the substantiality of the remaining area variance requests. 37. Based on the new location of the tower upon the site in the revised plans, the tower was set back from the property lines in the following dimensions. Front yard property line setback 153 feet, rear yard property line 272 feet, one side yard property line 239 feet, and the other side yard 148 feet. In the revised site plan, the proposed height of the tower continued to be 159 feet. Thus, the required minimum setback from any property line was unchanged. Since the Saugerties zoning law requires that all tower bases must be located a minimum setback of 1.5 times the tower height from any property line, the required minimum setback for this tower away from any property line continued to be at least 238.5 feet. Number 39. Because the new location of the tower on the site changed dimensions of the variance required, the application was amended to request the following variances from the setback requirements of the zoning law. A variance of 86 feet from the front yard property line and a variance of 91 feet from the right side property line. Number 40. On September 7th, 2021, the ZBA discussed the latest submission from the applicant. Mr. Grafe, the ZBA's consulting RF engineer, was still troubled by the height differential between the proposed Mount Marion Firehouse Tower and the proposed 17 Industrial Drive Tower, and did not see a justification for the proposed 17 Industrial Drive Tower being 39 feet taller. ZBA members also expressed concern about the height of the tower, particularly because the change in tower location had shifted the proposed tower closer to the property boundaries, thereby increasing potential danger to off-site properties should the tower fall. ZBA Chair Kelly noted the problematic nature of the shifted location of the tower because it placed at least one neighboring residential property in the fall zone of the tower. The ZBA accepted the revised application as complete and scheduled a public hearing for October 4th, 2021. Number 41. Public hearing on the revised application was advertised and held on October 4th, 2021. Because of the COVID-19 pandemic, the public hearing was held virtually. The public was afforded the opportunity to remotely view the public hearing and also participate remotely in the hearing. During this time, members of the public and attorneys representing some members of the public provided written and oral comments to the ZBA. Many of the comments received were in opposition of the proposed tower based on objections to the height of the proposed tower, safety concerns about the proximity of the proposed tower to neighboring structures and roads, potential depreciation in the real estate value of nearby homes, the limited range of the alternative site search area and lack of alternatives reviewed by the applicant, and the appropriateness of the proposed tower in the OLI zoning district. Number 42. Public hearing was continued to November 4th, 2021, where additional comments were received from the public. Additionally, discussions were had between attorneys for the ZBA, the applicant, and some members of the public regarding the proper standard for reviewing area variances for public utility use. The ZBA's counsel asked the respective attorneys to brief their positions as to the proper test for reviewing area variances for public utility uses. The attorneys were asked to provide those comments to the ZBA within the 10 days following the meeting. The ZBA closed the public hearing on November 4th with the caveat of the additional 10 days granted to the attorneys to provide written briefing on the area variance test for public utilities. Number 43. At the November 4th, 2021 meeting, the ZBA requested that the applicant extend the shot clock to January 6th, 2021. The applicant did not commit to an extension at that time and instead suggested that the ZBA issue its decision at the November 4th meeting. The ZBA was not in a position to evaluate all the comments received at the public hearing that night and issue a decision at the November 4th meeting. Subsequently, on November 22nd, the applicant agreed to extend the shot clock to January 6th, 2022 for a decision on both the MMFD application and the current application. However, this was not a viable solution to the ZBA as the public hearing on the use and area variance for the MMFD have not been concluded per the request by the applicant to table the MMFD as it pursued the current application. Number 44. On October 15th, 2021, Robert Berg and David Gordon, two attorneys representing different members of the public, and the applicant's attorney, Scott Olson, provided written comments to the ZBA addressing the test to apply for area variances for public utilities. The attorney's comments addressed the area variance test to be used for telecommunications facilities. Those comments also asserted some factual arguments about whether the applicant in this case did or did not meet the public utility exemption test. Upon the expiration of the period to submit written comment, the public hearing was completely closed. Number 45. On November 19th, the applicant's attorney, Mr. Olson, submitted another letter to the ZBA. In that letter, Mr. Olson asserted that, quote, material misrepresentations, end quote, had been made to the ZBA during the public hearing by John Greco, an adjoining neighbor to the project, regarding a potential alternative antenna site on a water tank structure. Then on November 24th, the planning board forwarded to the ZBA a letter by John Kilby, another adjoining neighbor. Addressed to the planning board, that letter discussed alleged representations made by Mr. Olson about 37 Industrial Drive as an alternative site location. Number 46. The courts have held that a new public hearing should be held if the ZBA receives information subsequent to the close of the initial public hearing in order to afford all interested parties the opportunity to comment or rebut the factual information that may ultimately impact a ZBA's decision on a matter. Given the nature, context, and potential significance of this information and its receipt by the ZBA after the close of the public hearing, the ZBA deemed it necessary to afford all interested parties the right to review and comment on this new information. Number 47. As such, a public hearing on this application was re-advertised and the public hearing was reopened at a special meeting of the ZBA held on December 14th for the purpose of affording all interested parties the opportunity to comment on the post-hearing submissions received by the ZBA. Members of the public and all interested parties were provided the opportunity to speak on the post-hearing submissions. Comment was received during the reopened hearing, and then the public hearing was closed on December 14th. Number 48. On January 5th, 2022, the ZBA referred the application to the Ulster County Planning Board for review pursuant to the New York State General Municipal Law 239-M. On January 6th, the UCPB responded to the referral The UCPB response indicated there would be no county impact from this project and no further comment was provided.
Thank you, Holly.
And this
I'll
over
take
to
it from here.
Thank you.
Part 2, findings of fact and conclusions of law. Number 49, the applicant is a public utility for purposes of zoning pursuant to the case Cellular Telephone Company versus Rosenberg. Number 50, in contrast to the typical area variance applicant, a public utility applicant must demonstrate 3 factors in order to meet the public utility area variance test. An applicant must demonstrate, 1, that there are gaps in service that need to be remedied, that the proposed facility will remedy those gaps, and 3, that the facility represents a minimal intrusion on the community. The basis and rationale for establishing this test are, quote, where the intrusion or burden on the community is minimal, the showing required by the utility should be correspondingly reduced, end quote. Area variance test factor 1 of 3, gaps in service. Number 51, the applicant states in its application that there needs to be new coverage, i.e. relief significant coverage gap in the surrounding area and additional capacity for the existing network, which is currently capacity exhausted in the immediate area. As stated by the applicant, the ultimate objective of this proposed project is to close significant gaps in service and relieve substantial network capacity issues related to increased demand for wireless services. Number 53, according to the applicant, Saugerties is currently served by 2 macro telecommunication tower sites, Kingston and Saugerties. At present, these sites are overloaded, requiring capacity relief. The primary objective for this project is to increase capacity and improve coverage throughout the south central portion of Saugerties, Mount Marion Park, particularly, including service to portion of the New York State Thruway, Glasgow Turnpike, Route 32, Kings Highway, Churchland Road, and portions of the adjacent residential and commercial areas. Number 54, the applicant has provided RF analysis to demonstrate the gap in service in the area based on both coverage and capacity. 55, the ZBA's consulting RF engineer, Ron Grafe, PE, has agreed that there is a gap in service in Saugerties and there is a need for relief of the 2 sites. 56, we agree that it has been shown that there are gaps in the service that need to be remedied. Area variance test number 2, remedy the gaps. Number 57, the applicant proposes that the facility will result in closing the gaps in service and relieve network capacity issues. The RF analysis submitted by the applicant has demonstrated that coverage will be improved by the proposed facility. This has been demonstrated by the RF maps provided in the application, which show the improved coverage on the proposed facility. 59, Mr. Grace has reviewed the RF maps submitted to the ZBA by the applicant and has agreed that the facility will remedy the gap. However, number 60, however, throughout the course of the ZBA's review, Mr. Grafe has repeatedly expressed doubt that the tower height proposed by the applicant is the minimum tower height necessary to close such gaps and improve coverage. 61, Mr. Grafe has also expressed concerns about the small size of the search area radius used by the applicant. The zoning law requires that applicants provide a 2-mile radius search area for other potential sites in which it can locate a proposed tower or co-locate. The zoning law says that an applicant should provide a description of the siting criteria and the process by which other possibilities were considered and eliminated, including but not limited to real estate search areas, accessibility to roads and utilities, distances and bearings to other system sites, acceptable radio signal levels and radio coverage areas, and/or microwave interconnection path requirements. The application shall support the statement with the submission of a study comparing all potential host sites within an appropriate 2-mile radius of the subject site. This study should include a description of the surrounding site and a discussion of the ability or inability to host a facility. Town of Saugerties Zoning Law 245-11P7C2. Number 62. The search area ring provided by the applicant is approximately a half a mile to a third a mile and falls significantly short of a 2-mile radius in area. In fact, the search ring provided in this application is actually based on the MMFD property and has not been adjusted or reevaluated for the current application for the 17 Industrial Drive site. This shortcoming has been frequently commented upon by the ZBA members, the board's consultants, and also by members of the public. However, the applicant has not provided a wider search area. Area variance test factor 3, minimal intrusion on the community. 64, as stated by the New York State Court of Appeals in addressing the public utility test for area variances, quote, a zoning board may not exclude a utility from a community where the utility has shown a need for its facilities. However, this has never meant that a utility may place a facility wherever it chooses within the community, end quote. Number 65. Although telecommunications towers are regulated under federal law by the Federal Telecommunications Act of 1996, local municipalities are permitted to regulate the siting of these towers in their communities, as Saugerties has done through its zoning law. Number 66. In order to protect the interests of the community, Saugerties zoning law 245-11P, which establishes the special use permit standards for commercial telecommunications facilities, provides extensive and detailed guidance spanning 15 pages as to where telecommunications facilities may be located, how they should be sited, and how the towers should be designed. Significant variances for the required setback are a significant intrusion on the community. Number 67. Section 245-11P of the zoning law specifically regulates the kind of commercial communication facilities proposed here. 68. Of relevant concern for this particular proposed facility, the Saugerties zoning law requires a minimum setback of 1.5 times the total height of the proposed tower. As stated in the Saugerties zoning law, the purpose of this requirement is to protect abutting residential parcels, public property, and street lines from the dangers of icefall or debris in case of tower failure, as well as to protect residential privacy. Number 69. It should be noted that despite the street name, 17 Industrial Drive, and the zoning district, Office Light Industrial OLI zoning district, the reality is the area around the proposed project is a mix of both commercial and residential uses. There are a significant number of residential homes in the area, and that was reflected by the number of residential neighbors who participated in the public hearing. This is also documented in the visual impact analysis that was prepared as part of this review. Number 70. Here, the proposed tower height is 159 feet. Thus, the zoning law requires the towers to be set back a minimum of 238.5 feet from any property boundary. Initially, the applicant proposed to have the proposed facility set back 159 from the front yard property line, set back 188 from one side property line, set back 165 from the other side property line, and set back 262 from the rear yard property line. 71. Although that initially proposed siting plan still required 3 variances from the front side and rear yard boundaries, at 159 to the closest boundary line, the distance between the tower and the boundary lines were at least the height of the tower or greater. However, when the location of the proposed facility was subsequently shifted to avoid encroaching upon a wetland, that shift in location moved the tower closer to some of the property boundaries. And importantly, this caused the tower to be located at a distance from the property boundaries and from nearby residences and adjoining properties that was less than the height of the tower. Thus, the substantiality of the variance sought increased, and the margin of safety in case of a tower failure was significantly diminished. Number 73. The substantiality of the setback variances under the revised site plan are significant enough to compromise the margin of safety and privacy that the zoning law's setback requirement of 1.5 times the tower height is meant to provide. Number 74. The applicant's revised plan to shift the proposed facility 40 feet is not a minor adjustment. but a severe impact and a material change that has created a public safety danger, has created a public safety and danger to nearby neighboring properties and other nearby structures. The applicant did not attempt to mitigate these dangers either, as the applicant, upon learning of the existence of the wetlands on the property, simply opted to move the proposed facility out of the wetlands, but failed to A, lower the height of the tower, B, attempt to obtain the necessary permits to disturb the wetlands so the tower could remain in the same location on the site, or C, search for any additional properties that would allow for a greater setback between the proposed tower and nearby property boundaries. Number 75, we determined that as proposed, the close proximity to the proposed facility to neighboring property boundaries presents a potential threat to the safety, welfare, and privacy of neighboring properties and their owners, and as such represents a significant intrusion upon the community and one that cannot be characterized as minimal. Significant height to be silhouetted against the sky is a significant intrusion on the community. Number 76. The height of the proposed tower is also a significant intrusion to the community. 77. Throughout the course of our review of this application, despite repeated urging, the applicant failed to enter evidence into the record to demonstrate that proposed tower height of 159 was the minimal height necessary to close the gap in coverage, especially since the tower that had been proposed at the MMFT property a short distance away was only 120 feet in height. 78, the applicant proposes a 159-foot tower in the OLI zoning district. In addition to requiring that telecommunication towers be set back at least 1.5 times the height of the tower to protect neighboring properties, the Saugerties zoning law also states no facility shall be silhouetted against the sky as seen from any viewpoint located 1,000 feet or more from the base of the facility. Here again, the zoning law provides important guidance to the ZBA as the town of Saugerties' vision for how it wants commercial telecommunications facilities sited. This definitive guidance defines the degree of intrusion caused by tower height that is considered to be minimal by Saugerties as a community. 80. Over the course of this review, ZBA consultants, Mr. Grafe, Mr. Schuster, as well as ZBA members themselves, have repeatedly questioned whether the proposed height of the tower is the minimum height necessary to close the gaps in coverage. The applicant was asked numerous times during the course of the review to provide an analysis or a justification for the 159-foot tower height and to explain why this tower had to be so much higher than the 120-foot tower that had been proposed for the Mount Marion Fire Department property. 81. Here, the applicant has failed to answer the question or to address the issue. And in failure, the applicant has failed in its burden of proof in demonstrating that its application meets the area variance test for the public utility use that the proposed facility is a minimum intrusion on the community. Number 82. Although it has been demonstrated that at the 159 height proposed, this facility will resolve the gaps in service coverage, it has not been demonstrated that 159 feet is the minimum height necessary to close the gap. Neither has it been demonstrated, nor has an explanation been given as to why the proposed tower is 39 feet higher than the 120-foot tower that had been proposed nearby at the Mount Marion Fire Department site. 84. As discussed by both Mr. Grafe and Mr. Schuster, the record contains evidence that the difference in ground elevation between the Mount Marion Fire Department site and the 17 industrial site is 2.3 feet. The above mean sea level ground elevation at the Mount Marion Fire Department site was certified for the applicant by Tectonic at 175 feet. The above mean sea level elevation at 17 Industrial Drive was certified by the applicant by Tectonic at 172.7 feet. The linear distance between both sites is approximately 1,100 feet. As was stated by Mr. Grafe during the September 7, 2021 ZBA meeting, there is a legitimate concern about the justification difference in the tower heights for the fire department site and the industrial drive site, when there is otherwise no significant difference between the two sites. 86, the applicant's RF engineer did provide some RF mapping to demonstrate different RF analysis at different tower heights for the proposed tower at 17 Industrial Drive. This included one at 126 feet, about a tower at that height. The RF engineer summarily concluded that the 126 ACL is too low and unacceptable compared to the fire department at 116 feet ACL and the currently proposed 17 industrial site at 146 ACL. Number 87, an unelaborated contention that a 126-foot tower is too low and unacceptable does not address the variance test. The key is whether the gaps in service would be remedied by a 126-foot tower, even if that remedy is not the applicant's desired and preferred tower height. We find that the applicant has failed its burden of proof. 88. In addition, in discussing his analysis of the visual impact reports, Mr. Schuster pointed out that in many of the photographs and corresponding simulations where the tower is visible, those depictions show only the upper portion of the tower above screening vegetation. According to Mr. Schuster, it is apparent that if the tower height was 30 feet shorter, similar to the height of the tower previously proposed at the Mount Marion Fire Department site, the tower would be obscured from most of those viewpoints, including those in excess of 1,000 feet, which require an area variance. Number 89, we find that the applicant has not shown substantial evidence to justify the need for the proposed 159-foot tower at 17 Industrial Drive, particularly when the applicant had proposed a 120-foot tower at Mount Marion Fire Department site that was only 1,100 feet less than 3-foot difference in elevation. The ZBA asked for evidentiary justification for the 159-foot tower from the applicant, and the applicant had ample opportunities to provide that evidence, but it was never provided. 90. We consider that to be a failure by the applicant to demonstrate that the tower height is the minimum necessary to close the gap, and a failure by the applicant to meet its burden of providing evidence for the record to show that this tower height, as proposed presents the minimal intrusion on the community. Failure to consider alternatives is a significant intrusion on the community. 91. In addition to failing to justify the 159-foot height requested for the proposed facility, the applicant also failed to justify scope of its search area for alternative site. 92. The Saugerties zoning law requires that the applicant for telecommunications facilities provide a description of the siting criteria and processes by which other possibilities were considered and eliminated, including but not limited to real estate, search areas, accessibility to roads and utilities, distances and bearings to other system sites, acceptable radio signal levels and radio coverage areas, and/or microwave interconnection path requirements. The applicant shall support the statement with the submission of a study comparing all potential host sites within an approximate 2-mile radius of the subject site. This study should include a description of the surrounding sites and a discussion of the ability or inability to host a facility. The applicant has never provided an alternative analysis for available sites within a 2-mile radius. Instead, the applicant has provided a radius of approximately 1/2 to 1/3 mile. This unusually limited search area has raised another concern that has been repeatedly stated over the course of the review by ZBA members, the ZBA's consultants, and members of the public. As was the case with the tower height justification issue, the applicant has failed to provide to the board substantial evidence to support the area search ring that does not meet the Saugerties law requirement. The applicant claims that the search radius ring is small due to the capacity issue. Applicant also asserts further that the reason for this is that the radio frequencies to be utilized at the site will be higher and thus cannot travel as far, so that the practical distance for workable alternative locations to fill the coverage gap in this case is less than 2 miles. But these are conclusory statements, and the applicant has never provided to the board a formal analysis or report discussing other alternative sites within a 2-mile radius of the proposed tower. What is troubling about this search area discrepancy is that having such a small search area severely limits our consideration of appropriate alternatives that may exist for potential facilities. The current application came before this board as a result of the applicant looking outside the search area it proposed for the Mount Marion Fire Department. In fact, the application before us for the 17 Industrial Drive site states that the search area being utilized in this application has not been amended or adjusted since the Mount Marion Fire Department application. 98, in the application, the 17 Industrial Drive, the applicant says search area. As part of the review of the original candidate, the Mount Marion Fire Department property, the Saugerties Zoning Board of Appeals expressed a strong interest in having Tarpon and Verizon Wireless pursue a new site in the office light industrial zoning just outside the boundaries of the search area. Although Verizon Wireless and Tarpon have agreed to pursue such new location, the search area remains the same to preserve the record. 99. Thus, no additional search area and therefore no additional alternatives have been reviewed by the applicant outside of the site for 17 Industrial Drive location. 100. Although the applicant has detailed its attempts to contact the owners of nearby properties to ascertain whether there is interest in leasing space for a telecommunications facility, there isn't any evidence in the record supporting why the initial search was so far below the required 2-mile radius required by the Saugerties zoning law, and why a new search area was not formulated for the 17 Industrial Drive site. In our minds, this raises doubt about whether viable alternatives may exist outside the applicant's small search ring, but within the 2-mile radius set in the zoning law that would present a minimal intrusion on the community. These doubts are exacerbated by the fact that the 17 Industrial Drive site property is located outside the initial search area for the Mount Marion Fire Department. The currently proposed siting, in conclusion, the currently proposed siting of the facility does not present a minimal intrusion to the community. We find that the proposed facility is not a minimal intrusion on the community, although the facility was initially proposed to be sited less than the required setback of 238.5 feet. It was at least the distance of the tower height away from the properties and the boundaries. However, upon having to move the proposed site 40 feet to avoid wetlands, the proposed tower is now located at a distance that is less than the height of the tower nearby properties and streets. This is a danger to the community, as the purpose of the setbacks is to protect abutting residential parcels, public property, and street lines from the dangers of icefall and debris, or debris in cases of tower failure, as well as to protect residential privacy. Under these circumstances, we cannot find that, as proposed, this facility presents a minimal intrusion upon the community. Number 104, the proposed tower is also much taller than the tower was previously proposed on a nearby site. The different sites are similar in ground elevation and are near each other. However, the height proposed at one site was 120 foot, and the height proposed in the application before us is 159 feet. No substantial evidence has been entered into the record to establish that 159 tower is the minimum height needed to remedy the gaps in service. Consequently, there is no evidence in the record that would support a finding by the board that 159-foot tower is the minimum height necessary and therefore presents the minimal intrusion on the community. 105. The applicant has failed to conduct an alternative site analysis within the required 2-mile radius, despite the fact that the current application was outside the initial search area the applicant reviewed. 106. The applicant argues that the proposed tower is a minimum minimal intrusion on the community because it is located in the OLI zoning district, and commercial telecommunications facilities are a permitted use in the OLI zone, subject to the issuance of a special use permit. While it is true that a Type 5 facility is permitted in the OLI zoning district, the burden remains with the applicant to demonstrate that it can meet the special use permit criteria. In this case, portions of the special use permit criteria quantify and provide guidance as to how those facilities should be sited so as to present a minimal intrusion on the community. Saugerties has acknowledged the need for these facilities and has therefore allowed them in certain zoning districts. But in going to great lengths in the zoning law to provide extensive and detailed limits on facility siting, the town has defined for us and for potential applicants exactly how these facilities can be sited so as to present a minimal intrusion on the Saugerties community. Here, the application does not meet key elements of the special use permit criteria for Type 5 telecommunications towers. Number 107. Overall, we find that there is a lack of substantial and credible evidence in the record to demonstrate that the applicant met its burden of proving that it meets the minimal intrusion criteria of the area variance test. Now, therefore, be it resolved, based upon the evidence in the record before us, upon all the findings of fact and conclusions of law described above, and upon the reasoning described as follows. Section A, we determine that the facility proposed by the applicant has met the first two elements of the variance test, specifically, 1, there are gaps in service that need to be remedied. 2, that the proposed facility will remedy those gaps. B, we determine that the applicant has failed to demonstrate with substantial evidence in the record that the facility as proposed presents a minimal intrusion on the community. In Section C, we determine that based upon the evidence in the record before us, upon all of the findings of fact and conclusions of law described above, and upon the reasoning described above, the applicant's application for variances is denied. Can I have a second?
I'll second, Patty.
Henry seconds. Can we have some discussion on this motion? Who wants to go first?
Patty, it's Joe.
Hi, Joe.
I just want to reiterate the problems with the height justification have been a problem for me from throughout this whole presentation.
Right.
Potential safety impact on the nearby residents, and the fact that the search zone was so limited shows a failure for the applicant to really try and achieve satisfactory results here.
I agree. I'm very proud, actually, of our zoning law, because when we spent time going through the zoning law, looking to see how it guided us, it really did cover a lot of what we needed. It really laid out for us the direction that we needed to take in terms of the setbacks. We didn't make this stuff up. It was clearly defined in the zoning law. And the reasons it was defined in the zoning law was because of the protections it afforded for the community. And you know, sometimes you just take it for granted, but in rereading that material again, I'm very proud that we took this course of action and that we did it this way. The other thing that really struck me as I was reviewing this, as I know you all have been reviewing all the documentation that was going to go into this decision, was the idea of the search area. And what really ticked me off, quite honestly, was after a year or so of listening to the applicant saying that the search area was just, you couldn't get out of that search area, that the only places that would work were within that search area. When push came to shove, they identified 3 sites in the light industrial zone that met their criteria, 2 of them on the Kilby property and 1 on 17 Industrial Drive, not including the one they ended up on, because that was not one of the ones that they had said was viable at the beginning. So if there were 3 sites that were workable for them outside of their search area, I'm glad that we talked about this and put in the possibility that there might have been others that they just didn't look at because they didn't want to look at. And anyway, I don't want to take up everybody's time, but I just thought that this was a good opinion and reflected everybody's points of view and all of the arguments that people presented, and also the applicants. They talked about the fact that we needed to have better coverage and capacity, and we don't disagree with that. What we disagree with is the manner in which they thought that they would get that by where they sited a tower. Henry, did you have something you wanted to say?
Yeah, the whole process, I mean, has been quite lengthy, but it was also very well delved into by not only the attorneys, by us as a zoning board,
and the public,
and that's where I'm going with this. On numerous occasions, I've had some heated discussions with Mr. Olson regarding the public. And if the people remember, or the video will show, he outright told me that I was not charged with that. Okay, I only had 3 things that I was charged. The zoning board only had 3 things. And I questioned him and I said, well, wait a minute, you're missing the 4th thing. And the 4th is the variance. And the well-being and the properties of the adjoining property owners. I even brought up the fact, who's going to cover it as far as insurance? Is the town going to be responsible? Is Verizon going to be responsible? And the attitude was, he didn't care. They didn't care. They didn't care about the property, the adjoining property owners. And I feel, I mean, I've been on the board for, I don't know, since in the 80s. My position has always been the property owners are the ones that have to, our biggest concern should be the adjoining property owners. And if we can't protect them, we're not doing our job. Again, within the zoning law, there's been times where I didn't feel that it was the right thing, but the law speaks for itself. And as you said prior, we have a very good zoning law. If it's followed and followed by us, it works. It works. We found that it works, and we tried to.
Well, you know, I think that if the applicant leaves with anything, I mean, I know they're not going to be happy. I'm sure they're on the line right now. I just can't see them. But if they go away with anything, and what future applicants that want to do cell towers, if they go away with anything from this decision, and this finding that we did, it's that doing your homework is really important. Don't come with variances that are going to be almost impossible for us to approve. Do your homework in citing. Make sure you follow the guidelines of the zoning law.
Well, here's my other point was this, Patty.
Yeah.
My other point was this. In a lot of ways, I feel this was self-inflicted by Tarpon and by Verizon. And I brought that up. I said, once you realized and were notified that you had wetlands, that you had to move the tower, why at that point did you go forward? You knew that it was going to greatly increase the variances. And basically their attitude was, well, we didn't care. In other words, okay, what's the difference if it's 180-foot variance or 140-foot variance? And
they didn't consider it significant. They kept using that word. They didn't
exactly.
consider it significant.
Call it however you want to call it.
Right.
But if your backyard wasn't being affected by this, it's quite a difference. And
But I also think there are lessons learned here, don't you? There are lessons learned that as we
Definitely.
were putting this together and working with each other and with the attorneys, we learned that, you know, there is a right way to do it. You can site cell towers if you pick the proper location and if you take the time and the money to find the proper location and make sure that all of the things that you're going to have to do can be done. And you know, I don't have a problem giving variances. It's as we've always said from the beginning, if the variances are so substantial as to be a detriment to the community, that's where you get into the problem.
Correct.
So I hope that this decision will not just impact this particular application, but perhaps cell towers in the future will take a look at it and say, okay, so they're serious about their zoning law, and they're serious about what the zoning law tells them they can and cannot do or shouldn't do, and they're serious about the community protections that are part of the zoning law. And if they take it serious, maybe we should take it serious too. That's what I hope people come away with.
Absolutely.
Any and all applicants should use the zoning law. It's the perfect guide to lead them to success. If they follow the law, they're going to achieve their needs. And the other thing I want to also say, I've been really confused by the fact that Verizon has seemed so reluctant to keep such a limited search area where there's many, I believe there have to be other opportunities that will provide what they need and what the town needs. And they did not research.
No, but maybe we'll find out in the future. I mean, who knows? Is there anybody else that anyone wanted to say anything? I didn't want to cut any other board member off. Heidi, Holly?
Yes. I guess I would just like to say that we really do need a cell tower in the Mount Marion area.
Definitely.
And I've been on the board for 2 years now, and I find it a little frustrating and sad that for that entire 2-year period, we have been on the receiving end of applications, one or another, from this applicant, and yet the variances sought or the facilities were just so out of proportion to the placement of the facilities that we were unable to approve them and come to agreement because the Mount Marion area is suffering for it, and the rest of people on the thruway and people who need more capacity. So I do want to keep in mind that we do really have a need here, and I just think it's a little frustrating that the both facilities brought to us were just so out of line with the zoning law requirements that no matter how much I personally tried to stretch to see if we could approve them, I just couldn't.
I know. I agree.
Well said.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. If there's no other
I
conversation.
I think
Scott also, can I
Ted
just
had
a
something.
brief comment?
I'm sorry. No, Scott, this is a board discussion.
Okay, sure.
Board discussion. We have a motion that's pending. Is there anybody else from the ZBA board who wants to say anything?
I was just
If not-
gonna say, I was just gonna
Okay,
quick
Tim.
say something, Patty. It's Tim.
Sure. Go ahead.
Yeah, just for me, as with the rest of the board here, just the lack of research done on Verizon's part with all this is, I mean, really from day one, from the original application, has been an issue. But, I do hope, and I'm sure, I would hope anyway, that being a $1 billion corporation, you guys are going to learn from this. But I certainly hope next time, should there be a next time, that it won't be such a drawn out issue. It didn't have to be, but this is what it came to.
Okay. Well, I agree with you, and I think that that this decision helps inform what not to do, and the zoning law informs them what to do. So whether it's Verizon or AT&T, any tower that's going to come here, there are rules to follow, and the ZBA likes to follow the rules that the community has set out through our zoning board and our zoning law. So having said that, then I will call the vote since it's been motioned and seconded. Henry Rua, Vice Chair, how do you vote?
I'm in favor of the denial.
I'm sorry, you vote to deny. Okay, that's
Henry,
Joe,
do you
can
mean
you
that
hear
you
me?
vote? Do you mean that you vote to deny the variance, or you to deny the motion?
I'm sorry?
No, the motion is to deny the variance, Henry. So all you have to do is say you vote yes.
Yes, I said I did.
Okay.
Just wanted to confirm.
Yes, thank you. Joe?
Yes.
Tim?
Yes.
Holly?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Now, can we just confirm, can we please have a motion to accept the minutes from the December 6th and December 14th meeting? Does somebody make that motion? Anybody?
I'll make
Joe
it.
makes the motion. Okay, is there a second, please?
I'll second.
Henry, okay, Tim seconds. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Okay, great. So those passed. One thing I want to just say before we move to close the meeting is this is Holly's last meeting, and we are welcoming Bill Shermer, who's joining us next month. And we've said it before, Holly, but thank you. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
It's been a pleasure working with you.
Yes, thank you, Holly.
Thank you.
You're darn right.
Good job.
Okay, and thanks to everybody who participated, as always. And can I have a motion to close the meeting, please?
I'm sorry, Patty, on the agenda, I have to interrupt, but is there going to be a discussion on the Mount Marion Firehouse application?
Oh, goodness. Oh, yes. Oh, my goodness. Thank you. I need a motion. Oh, goodness. That would have been horrible. Can I please have a motion from the board? We had agreed last time that we were going to vote to put the Mount Marion Firehouse back on, take it off the table and put it on the agenda for next month's meeting, February's meeting. Can I have a motion to that effect? All right, I'll make a motion to take the Mount Marion Firehouse application for a use and area variance off the table and have it on the February 7th ZBA agenda. Is there a second?
Second it.
Who was that, Joe?
Joe.
Okay, and in the matter of discussion, I think that we should also make next meeting a public hearing so that the public can be involved in this from the beginning, because we have never discussed the use variance with it because we didn't need to do that for the firehouse one. But the more the public is involved and they can have their say, the more expedited we can make this application.
I think the public hearing actually was for both.
It wasn't, Scott. It was just for the Monroe.
I did the notice, and I talked with George Redder about this. I'm pretty sure it was for both, and I think the hearing was closed.
Who's I don't hear who's talking. I can't see.
Scott Olson, but that's when I went back to the meeting minutes. But and I did the notice. I'll double check.
I think the way that it was left at the January was that it was, if it was determined that it wasn't immune, that we were going to move forward with the public hearing for use and area variance. So that's where it was left off, that it was.
I didn't read that in the meeting minutes today, but I think that something has to be checked, because our position is that hearing, as of January 7th of last year, we agreed to table it. And I think it was John Lyons that said, yes, that hearing should definitely be closed. And the board had already issued the findings on January 7th. And we talked after about tabling the hearing. And we said, someone, I forget who it was, said, hey, well, what about the public hearing? When do we close that? And John Lyons said we should be closed in February. So that's what had happened, I believe.
Okay.
And there would be
but
no
Scott,
need to. Go ahead.
Okay, first of all, we're in the middle of a board vote, so, or a board discussion. So, but I also want to just say, we never discussed the use variance when we were doing the firehouse application because it wasn't necessary because we were doing the Monroe, and so the use variance was never discussed.
I'll be
So
quiet for now, but
we
that is
can-
definitely not true.
We can put off the public hearing if you want, but I thought that you wanted to move fast on this application.
You do
if
what you
you
got to do. The shot clock for that expires tonight, and you have. So that's what I'll just say.
Shot
I
clock
just
on what?
I just reviewed the minutes today, and the Monroe decision resolution states that the public hearing would still have to go on for the use and area variance for Mount Marion.
Right. Right. And I'm proposing that we do it next month. Have that meeting be a public hearing.
Well, Patty, do you want
And
to entertain the first? Do you want to, because you have a motion on the floor for putting it back on the table, and you had a second. So do you want to finish out that
Yeah,
motion?
we were
first?
having this as a discussion, so let's do the first motion and then we'll have a second one. The motion on the floor and seconded is to put the Mount Marion, take the Mount Marion Firehouse application off the table for use and area and put it on the February 7th agenda. It's been made, it's been seconded. Can we have a vote? Henry?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
Tim?
Yes.
So Holly's not there. It'll be Patty. Right now it's just Patty because Tim was not a member of the board then, and neither was Bill. So right now
Well,
it's just the four of us. So we'll.
Well, this is a new. It's a new motion, though, right? Wouldn't it start? Wouldn't they
Well,
start?
it would be a new application. A new application.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think
So
you're
then,
right.
Randy. Okay, Randy, you will be a part of this. So do you want to take a vote on this?
Yes.
Okay, the motion passed. Now we need to determine whether or not we're going to make that meeting open to a public hearing on the use and area variance for the Mount Marion Firehouse. What say you, board?
Have a second.
Holly
Or,
found the information, so let's go with it.
So, Kim, you feel that the minutes reflect that we should do that, correct?
What I remember reading the Monroe. In fact, if the board wants to wait and decide it on February, but I'm almost positive that when I read through the Monroe decision, the resolution that was adopted, it stated that the public hearing for the use and area variance would happen if the Monroe decision found that the applicant was not subject to the or was subject to the variance to the zoning law, because it was stated that the public would have the opportunity to speak whether it was for a site plan or for the variances.
Okay.
Well, that makes sense. And we're talking about one variance to a use variance. So yeah,
then we
should
have a motion. Can we have a motion to set the public hearing for February 7th?
I'll make the motion, Patty. So we start the hearing.
Okay. Will somebody second that, please?
I'll second it, Patty.
Who's that? Who's the seconder?
Randy.
Randy? Okay. All in favor? Henry?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
Tim?
Yes.
Randy?
Yes.
And I vote yes. All right. So that, unless anybody has any other business, that concludes the business of the ZBA on this January 6th evening. And Scott, I'll be in touch with you because we have some new board members and I want to make sure everybody has the application and so forth and anything else that we might need for the review. Okay?
Patty, I'm sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
It's Kevin, but just before we move to adjourn, does this involve Scott sending out 500-foot letters again?
Yes.
Okay, so we know the drill, Scott, that I can forward the list to
Yes.
you and the letter, such. Okay.
Yes. Thank you, Kevin. Is Scott still on the line?
Yeah, I'm here.
Or did he leave? Okay, so I'll be in touch with you about making sure that we have all the appropriate files so that people who weren't on the board at that point are reviewing them and get all the appropriate information, okay?
Sure.
Okay. All right. Motion to adjourn. Second?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, great. All in favor, say aye.
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 Great. Thanks, everybody. It was a long night and we appreciate you. Everybody, thank you so much. Kim, John, if you're there, everybody, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Good
Thank
night,
you.
everybody.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you, Holly.
Good night.
Aye, guys.